With us today is Tony Greenidge, family man from humble beginnings to the top of the echelon in the corporate world. And we're looking forward to getting stuck in.
Tony Greenidge, who the fuck are you?
Who am I? Okay, well, first and foremost, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I've been in sales for most of my career. My passion now is road safety, and I work with businesses across the UK to make sure that the people that are working for them and driving on business do that as safely as possible. But sales has been in my blood for over 40 years. I'm a very competitive person by nature, but I've had to learn and develop and change as my career grew into sales leadership, business leadership. And as you can imagine, having been in it for 40 odd years, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. I think the first thing that everyone's looking forward to is hearing what has that 40 years looked like for you? Where did you start?
So where did I start? Okay, so I started, I'll go back just before I start. So I was fortunate in that I went to a very good school. My mother got me to take the 11 plus, and I didn't really understand what it was about. It was just an exam, a test or whatever. I went and did it, and I got into the local grammar school. I was the only person from my primary school to go into that grammar school. A very good school, Reading School. And I'll be honest, I was a fish out of water. I think I was only one or maybe one of two non-white people in my year. Not an issue in terms of the social kind of people that I was mingling with. It was a boarding school as well, which I didn't board. I was just way out of my depth. So if I don't have many regrets in life at all, but one I do have is the fact that I had the capability, but I didn't have the way to navigate my way through that school to give me the very best start in life. I was capable of more, but I didn't realise my potential. So when it came to going into the workplace, my mum said to me, get a job with the government. It's a job for life. It's secure and all the rest of it. So my first job was actually working for the Inland Revenue. So I was a taxman.
The great enemy.
Yes. And I did that for about 4 years. And then I went and worked for a builder's merchants, kind of doing over the phone, taking orders and that kind of stuff. Then I progressed into my first foray into sales, where I worked for a company in Basingstoke, and they were a big computer user, and they spotted an opportunity to take their buying power as a user and become a supplier. And my job was to get on the phone and talk to local businesses about us supplying them with their computer consumables on the back of our leverage. So that was my kind of first foray into sales. But I think it's fair to say up until then, my earning potential was quite minimal. So I kind of fell into gambling at a young age. And gambling became a way of me perhaps getting to a level that I could see other people around me getting to. So I was kind of chasing that dream, if you like. And, everyone knows that there's only one winner in that scenario, and it's not used. But that held me back, I think, for a number of years.
What do you think, going back to sort of young age, what do you think shaped you the most? So you got into those particular jobs, but did you aspire to be anything when you were?
I didn't know what I wanted to be. I looked at employment as just a way to get money to pay my bills and just do the things that I needed to do. I never had an aspiration to be anything. And again, I think I look back and say, why didn't you? You know, if I had and been able to have channeled that into something earlier, perhaps I could have accelerated my my growth, my development, etc. But you know, you can't go back. It is what it is. But in another way, you know, I think those experiences help to shape you in terms of what you become. I think it's important that you learn from that. And I think eventually the thing that certainly got me out of gambling was I could gamble when it was kind of my responsibility. If I lost money, okay, I'd find a way around it and I'd go skint for a little while, but then I'd get paid again. But then I had a wife and I had children.
What age were you then?
28, 29. And suddenly you're not in full control of the things you're trying to juggle, and you've got more to lose. And I just woke up one day and thought, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I literally got my credit cards, cut them up. And by then I'd got into kind of sales where there was an opportunity for me to earn more the more that I sold.
There's a high commission.
So suddenly I looked at life and said, actually, if I'm really successful there, I could earn the sort of money that I was chasing in the bookies. So I said, okay, woke up one day, cut the cards up. And I remember saying to my wife, 2 years, we will be square and everything will be cool. And I did it. I hit that target in 2 years, became debt-free, aside from the mortgage, but everything else debt-free. And from that day to this, I have lived a very sensible financial life, if you want to call it that, in terms of not taking risks, you know, thinking about how to spend it, what to do with it, investing in the family, investing in our home. It just took me a little bit longer maybe to get there than it perhaps could or should have done. But, you know, there is no guaranteed path on these things, are there? And I think, you know, whilst there were some dark days with that, I think you just have to look at it and say, okay, do you know what? Actually, I came through it. I did it myself. I didn't need therapy. I didn't go to Gamblers Anonymous and what have you. And it you know, it's interesting because I think that addicts, a lot of people are addicts. We're kind of addicted to something. And you often find, you know, when people have been addicted to things that can be harmful to you, whether it be alcohol, drugs, gambling or whatever, they often replace it with something else. So
it's very interesting you say that.
Yeah, so this is why a lot of people, they turn to God, for example, and they kind of become addicted to that kind of message.
That's happening at the moment with OnlyFans people.
OnlyFans.
Seeing quite a few people move to God. I always thought that's quite a big transition, do you know what I mean? Because they know...
Well, OnlyFans creators?
Yeah. Quite a big movement going on at the moment.
Well, it's where the gym becomes a big one for people. I think for me, that was one that just completely cut through something needs to make me obsessed. Is it either going to be that or this?
So I directed mine into work. And that's when I first started thinking about work and thinking about how can I use what I've got to make me more successful. And I guess that's when that journey sort of started in terms of sales and thinking about sales. That said, you know, I made every mistake you could make under the sun in terms of selling, lost deals that I should have won. And, you know, it took me quite a while to become emotionally mature as a salesperson. So once I actually got to a certain level, I became a bit, I'm actually quite good at this. So, who are you to tell me that, that piece of work wasn't great or...
Yeah, I think target, I'm overachieving.
Yeah, go away sort of thing. So I was very close to any sort of feedback, positive or otherwise. And about 25 years ago, I was working for an organisation that had a bit of a tyrant as an MD. And I sort of pride myself on my ability to articulate in a tender or a proposal, how I'm trying to pitch this and what have you. And we had this process where, okay, the tender would come in, the team would work on it, I would lead it, and then he would have the final kind of review and he would be saying, this is bollocks, who we don't do that. This is crap. How would you write this? And of course, I'm sitting there and I'm taking this really, really personally. And it really upset me and I didn't know how to deal with it. And then one day I sort of said to myself, I was going in for this review meeting and it was a big deal. And it was a deal I really felt in my water that we had a chance on. And it was a deal where he had originally told me not to bother going for it. Because he said, look, they've been with their incumbent supplier for years. They've got a stupid price. We're never going to be able to compete. Don't waste your time.
Leave it.
Call it a day.
Anyway, so I said to him, I don't want to leave it. This is a household brand. And I think we've got something different to offer. So he said, okay, up to you if you want to do it. So anyway, did the tender, go in. The barrel of abuse came. And I just took it. Because what I realised when I looked back, almost everything that he'd said to me was valid.
The criticism originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The criticism was valid. What I was focusing on was his method of delivery, not the message. So when I thought, actually, if I just park the rubbish the way he tells me and deal with what he's actually said, I'm going to improve the quality of that response. That gives me a better chance of winning that deal and a better chance of making more money. And so that was a real emotional kind of turning point for me to consider more what was being said rather than how it was being said. And I also learnt to challenge him back. So in the past, he would have let off steam, and you'd leave the room like a naughty school kid, thinking, okay, I'll do what he said. But on that particular occasion, so let me just understand. Is this what you're saying? Is this what you want me to do? And I think that took him aback, as if to say, oh, this is different. So
how many people actually challenge? Think about it. How many people challenge senior leaders?
And also, sometimes the people who are shouting the loudest, they're not actually, even though it feels personal, that's not how their brain works. They're
Exactly.
like, this is the fact. I'm telling you the fact. Rather, if you're crying, that's because there's something wrong with you. But I'm helping you.
Yeah.
And it's the people when you can actually go, he's not actually angry at me as a person. This is just his way of helping.
Yes.
That goes a massive way in being like, then it's a bit dangerous because then you start almost smiling and laughing when people shout at you because you're like, I know you're not. I know.
Now there's a funny kind of follow on to that story, because this deal was with a household name, big opportunity, and he said we'd never win it and what have you. Anyway, did the tender and he said, to be fair, the tender was good, made a few tweaks. Next thing, we shortlisted. So I said, we're shortlisted.
Against how many?
We're into the final 3.
Yeah.
So then it was the beauty parade, So I said, look, I've come up with an idea. This company is a big technology company. And it was at the time when the internet wasn't really doing that much in terms of business to business, in terms of you providing a system that the employees could use to carry out the function, ordering their cars and stuff like that. It was very, very new. So I said, I've got an idea that we could produce it. He said, no. I'm not investing money in and time in doing that for a deal that I still don't think we're going to win. Anyway, this is how life can just throw you a lifeline. He went on holiday. And the guy who was in charge of our sort of IT department came to me one day and said, Tony, we're a bit bored. We're a bit short of stuff to do. Have you got anything, that you're working on that we could get involved with? And I said, have I? Anyway, in about 2 weeks, they built me this very, very basic model that I could take to the beauty parade, the demo. And so MD came back, told him what had happened. He said, you cheeky. Anyway, fine, do it. Phone call comes in from the prospect saying, we want the person that's going to be managing the contract to deliver the pitch. And the girl that was going to be the account manager was like, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. I can't do a pitch. I can look after people but I can't do a pitch. So this was about 48 hours before. So I spent the day before literally rehearsing that pitch, the deck, the what have you. I said, look, don't worry. If you get into difficulty, I'll be there. Anyway, so she goes in, delivers the pitch. I kid you not. When we got to the stage where we said, right, we're going to show you now the system that we've come up with, which we think is going to really make your life easier. Your drivers are going to, you're a technology company, There were about 12 stakeholders in the room. And we put this system up. And for the next 30 minutes, we sat down quiet, and those 12 people were arguing amongst themselves as to how they were going to take this system and embed it in their business. It was like...
That's a very good car journey home, isn't it? I'm going out straight away.
It was unbelievable.
I would have got... Did you go out? Did you get drunk?
No, I did, because I still, until it's... I remember the phone call. I remember the phone call because we got called to a meeting about a week later. I can tell you we're going to go with you, and well done, and we're really excited about the new product and what have you. And I then phoned the MD as I left, and he said, "Oh wow, how are you going to celebrate?" And I said, "This is going to sound really stupid." I said, "I'm going to go and buy myself a big tube of jelly tots." I mean, that's how rock and roll I was at the time, because I'm not really a drinker. And but yeah, and do you know what came after that? And this is another thing that kind of sits with me. I remember going into the office when the contract went live, and I went into the office, and they put a big thing up on the ceiling, which was XX team. And when I saw that had a real stop and think moment for me to say, actually, those people are sitting at that desk working on that contract because of something that I actually made happen. Mm. And, you know, that was really something to kind of feel that. And so it went beyond winning the deal and what have you. Those people are coming to work to make something happen for a client where I actually facilitated the deal. So I think I suppose I got into the habit of really treasuring some of those little moments that then came along in my career afterwards. And on the back of that, one of the clients that was an incumbent provider to that client approached me and said, "We thought we were nailed on for that deal. How on earth did you win it off us? Come and work for us." So I went and worked for them, and that was my first step into leadership. And I think that first step into leadership was almost a disaster, as many people will tell you. Successful salesperson doesn't always make good leader.
No, not at all.
You know, the most
Seen so many.
The most obvious analogy is look at the list of Premier League managers. How many of those have actually been great players? Very, very few. Very few. And of course, when I joined, and everyone said, "Oh, there's that bloke won that deal. How would he do it? How would he do it?" So, first sales meeting, Billy Big Bollock stands up at the front of the room and says, "This is how I done it." I showed them the slide deck. I showed them what I was thinking. And they're all going, "Oh, bloody hell. How do you think of that? Oh, that's really good. Wow, that..." I couldn't show them the system, but the principle. And of course, I'm sitting, right, I've told you all how I've done it now. So you're going to go off and do the same, aren't you? It wasn't until 12 months later, when I was looking down the barrel of getting the sack, that I realised it's not as easy as that.
It's a completely different... They say you don't truly understand something unless you can make other people do it.
So what I'd done is I'd showed them the result, but I hadn't shown them the steps that they might need to take to get there.
And based on their unique
personality.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess before you were driven by money solely, really, because after you think, go back to when you stopped the gambling, just in that, I would think, if you didn't have a wife at that point, and many people are lonely and don't have, whether it's good friends or people around them, would that have been enough? Because it was the thought of, it wasn't something like, "Oh, I'm just going to cut my cards up and, oh, that's jolly, go my jolly," and stuff. No, something, you were painting probably a negative picture in your mind about what would happen if I continue to gamble. I'm guessing. Or how do you just stop overnight? I mean, people are going to go, "That sounds freaking easy. I just need to cut my credit card."
No, you just need a wife.
Yeah, well, I owe my wife everything.
Right.
So that was the incentive for me. A wife and two children that I had at the time.
And did she know about the gambling, like,
not
specifically?
To the extent.
Right, yeah.
No, not
that's
to the
often the way, isn't it? Because that's then you live a bit with shame.
I
don't you?
hid it very well.
Yeah, that's bad.
I hid it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not afraid to say that I'm sort of embarrassed and a little bit ashamed about that. But, you know...
You weren't thinking straight.
We're still together after 41 years. And we've been very happy. But without doubt, she and the two kids we had at the time, we've got three, turned my life into, or gave me the inspiration that I needed to turn my life to do something different. Now, I guess if I'd been in a 9-to-5 job where there was no earning potential and I couldn't see a way to earn my way out of financial difficulty, it probably would have been slightly different. But because I'd kind of fallen into sales and then suddenly realised that I could earn my way out of trouble, that's what I turned my addiction to.
Yeah, so you had it on two fronts. You had this sort of emotional getting through the front door at the end of the day and facing that, and then facing yourself. It's either going to make it worse or, as you found, be the catalyst, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe it's more of a men thing. They need a higher purpose. They need a vision. They need a goal.
Others.
When you've got like a family, it's sort of in a way a very male trait to put everything in perspective for that, isn't it? I think. I don't know.
Well, I've lost my. To be honest with you, you know, I've time again, I've sort of lost my purpose sometimes, because as long as you're ruminating about yourself and your own worries and your own gain or your own struggles, and you're not necessarily doing it for other people, I don't think sometimes for us, it's not enough for ourselves.
Well, I think social media now has just transformed that kind of thinking, hasn't it? You can project a lifestyle online that is completely off where you really are. We talk about suicide in young men and the fact that young men are going through
every 90 minutes
difficulties. It is a tough world, and I think so. And again, this is quite interesting, because they say about talking to people, and one thing I've always been able to do is talk to my wife. So although I never went to a place around the gambling, anything else, so I was really centered in that kind of relationship and the strength of it, and what it was doing for me. And I don't know, I think people obviously are, we met when we were 21, 22. I think these days people are getting married older, they're having kids later.
Or not at all.
It's taken them much longer to get on the housing ladder, to build up that
38 first time buyer.
It's a different it's a different world now. And of course, there's a reality that wages haven't kept pace with inflation. So, you can be in a job and be earning, let's say you're earning £30,000 a year, but in many parts of the country that can't get you anywhere near where you want to be. £30,000 is what we paid for our first house.
Really?
Yeah.
What does 30 grand doesn't get you a shed, does it?
Yeah. £30,000, a 3-bed terraced house in Reading. Okay, it needed a bit of doing up and what have you. But I also think, we had mix and match furniture from all over the place. Uncle this and, cheap that. And but we were happy. We were just, we're on the ladder. 2 years later, we sold that for 50 and bought another one for 76. And then you kind of...
You're well in then.
You go from there. But that ratio of salary to mortgage was much tighter than it is now.
Yes, see, I'd love your perspective on this, because you've got millennial forums online and just the general sort of chats going on. And then you've got the boomers. And there's all this, so you guys are, all your subscriptions, Netflix or Prime or Apple TV, your avocado and toast, all that
Starbucks.
Sort of, Starbucks, your coffees. If you cut that out, you might be able to afford it.
I don't get that. I do not get this idea that people have got to have a coffee, £3-4 every morning on their way into work.
Matcha, it's not coffee now, it's matcha latte. Actually.
Okay, well, I don't care what it is. I don't get it. Because by the time you actually get to the office, most offices are going to give you free coffee and tea anyway. So this, I find it bizarre. My parents live in Canada, as you know, Ruben, and you go to past a Tim Hortons at virtually any time of the day or night, and they're queuing. It's unreal.
But then, would you say even that argument in itself, are they doing that because they're just, I think there's an element that they're going, what is the point in me? I might as well live it up and have all these nice things, wherever that is, but to them, and not even bother saving for a house because it's so out of reach now. There's literally no point. What do you think about that?
I think, I think when I go back to then, it was a kind of a meet somebody, marriage, kids, house, and your thinking was kind of geared up to that. If you think about what's happening now, so many more kids are going to university. Then they're having the gap year when they decide they're going to go to Bali, go to Australia, go to Vietnam, Cambodia. Great traveling. My daughter did it for 3 years after she did her uni. So there's different priorities in life. So if you're going to do those things, obviously the more traditional things are going to come later because you're starting on that journey later. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. But yeah, I think this whole thing about kids going to university, for a couple of years, I was a non-exec director of a business that does apprenticeships. And because I was really interested in giving younger people different opportunities to develop themselves and express themselves and go on to do great things. It's not all about A levels, university, and what have you. And I think that's proven now because you can go through that route, university, come out with a load of debt. What job are you going to get? Where are the graduate jobs that recognise that you've done 3 years of hard graft to get your...
And don't you think there's a bounce back now from an employer point of view where because everyone's got a degree, they don't look at the degree as much as maybe they did 10 years ago. So now there's almost, it feels like less emphasis on how educated you are and who you actually are now.
Well, that's you went to university.
I never went to university. No. I mean, I think that's a really good point. You know, the fact that if you've got 20 applicants and 2 have gone to university, then they stick out, don't they? Now you've got 20 applicants, 12 have gone to university. They're all desperate for the job. So that premium that you might have paid before to get that graduate, perhaps you don't need to pay. I think apprenticeships are a good alternative. You're learning whilst you're earning. So it doesn't have to, we need to challenge that model, I think, and give people different starts.
And I think kids now actually they look up to people who make money from filming themselves online, on TikTok and stuff. Like most kids now want to be a YouTuber or a TikToker. It's like the number one career path is I want to make videos. You know what I mean? So now the technology's changed where it is a viable career path for like a lot of people. It's like gaming, like everything. Like there's people who literally in lockdown started a TikTok for a laugh and left their job a year later.
The traditional path, like you said now, is just, I don't know. I honestly would be so confused if I was.
Everyone's in a hurry, aren't they? And I think everyone, nobody wants to, or not say not everybody, nobody, but a lot of people don't understand the value of starting from the bottom and working your way up.
Did you say you just going back as well? Like you said, you went to grammar school.
Yeah.
So were you well off?
No, not at all. My mum and dad sacrificed for me to go there, and I think, to be fair to them, they probably didn't understand what it would take for me to be successful in that school.
That's interesting.
So it wasn't that they didn't want me to be. I think, you got to remember, my mum and dad came from the West Indies. They met on the boat, actually, travelling.
Wow.
And then got together. So they very quickly had 3 children. Hardworking. But, going to a grammar school and thinking about university wasn't in the family DNA, if you like, because they'd come from, South America and a very different part of the world. So I don't think the sort of work that I was having to do and the quality of work that I was, particularly as I got towards GCSEs and what have you, was kind of way beyond where they could help me, if you like. My mum helped me in terms of encouragement and trying to facilitate time and space for me to commit to learning. But without my commitment, it wasn't really going to.
It's a two-way street, that. Isn't
so
it?
I'm very grateful, because even though I didn't do as well as I would have liked, I think that experience did instill something in me, which I've kind of carried on through my working life.
You know, you said you sort of wished that you had known a bit more about yourself when you started. I think that would have made you less successful, because I think the fact that you were jumping around a bit and you didn't know what you were doing, so were therefore open to everything that was there, meant you probably learnt more from those disparate experiences than if you were just committed to one thing early. I always find the best salespeople I know, if you look at their career, it's mental. Like, they're doing all sorts of stuff, and then the one thing they learn is how to be good with people by dealing with different types of people.
Yeah, I mean,
it is interesting.
The analysis of good salespeople is a really interesting topic, and I've worked with some fantastic people over the time. In my experience, what you find with very successful salespeople, you ask them, what makes you successful? And they often don't know. Or they'll say, I just happen to be better than everybody else at doing certain things. Now, there's an assumption in there. There's an assumption that other people are doing the things that they're doing. But very often they're not. But they don't see that because it's so natural to them that, well, everyone does that, don't they? Well, yeah, of course they do. But I'm just really good at it. Actually, that bloke's not doing that. So when you take sales in its raw form, sales is a process. Starts there, ends there. And within that sales process, you've got various stages. And one of the things I learned when I went into leadership and when I first created the concept of a playbook, which I'll come on to later, was you've got to understand the stages of the sale, and you've got to understand how the three of us might differ in our ability to manage those stages of the process. So, you know, you might have someone that's really good at outbound and getting first appointments, but then it drops off a cliff. Then you'll have someone who's not so good at that, but when he gets into the final stage, really good at closing. The job of a sales leader, of course, is to be looking over that and understanding that and saying, right, what can I take from him and share with the rest of the team? What can I take from her and share that with the rest of the team? And you do it by creating a sort of almost a best practice. So if I was in sales leadership now, the first thing I would do is say, right, what's our playbook going to be? Okay. So that when salespeople come into this business, they know exactly where to go to get what does a good outreach email template look like? What does a good presentation look like? What does a good
after sale care guide?
All that kind of stuff. And you know, when you think about it, why wouldn't you do that? And the reason why I think it's really, really good to have that as well is often you hear this, we need someone to hit the ground running. We've got to recruit someone with industry knowledge.
Induction.
Yeah, we've got to get someone with industry knowledge. If you've got a really good playbook that someone with the right sales attitude can look at that and say, yeah, I get that. Okay, the products are different, but I get that. They can be successful.
Yes, and I've just thought as well, actually, it would show you as a company owner or sales director the glaring holes maybe in your product and service if only one specific type of person can do one specific part of the funnel. If you need someone to be very, very techie and smart and wordy and black and white and data to open the door, maybe the pitch and the product needs tweaking by product of the fact that this one person can do it. And then you need someone who's ultra aggressive to close it. You think maybe we're failing somewhere here. I like the fact that the best companies I've ever worked for from a sales perspective, it's sort of easy. They make it so easy to talk your way through that whole process, regardless of professionalism, personality or anything. It's just, this is how it works. So yeah, it's a very interesting model actually to sort of show maybe you as the owner of the company aren't actually aware that your product isn't as good as you think it is.
Yeah, and you know, you've got to be, you've got to be, a lot of people analyse deals when they're lost. Right, Why did we lose that deal? Oh, we got undercut on price. Oh, they did this, they do that. But maybe you should be analysing why you won. Because when you won, everyone goes, brilliant, yeah, won. Put that onto the next one. No, actually, what did you do? Hey, Mr. Sales Guy, come over here. Take the rest of the team through that deck you did. Why did you approach it that way? Right, okay.
And there's going to be intricate moments in there where they've maybe pushed back on a certain thing and he's picked up on it.
Yeah.
Or he goes, he was a United fan as well.
Yeah. Whatever it is, analyze those wins and take out of that. Okay, what goes into my playbook? That playbook is a living, breathing thing that you're always updating and evaluating. So, I can talk about this for ages. But if you think about the sales journey that I've been on, I remember it was all about features and benefits. Features, benefits. You've joined this company. Let's take you through the features and benefits of our products. And you'd go in like a twat and say, Mr. Prospect, this has got X amount of gigawatts. So the benefit to you is that it will do that. And he's looking at you and saying, I don't give a shit about gigawatts. Oh, don't you?
He's nodding. He won't tell you that. He'll nod.
Hang on a minute. I'm just moving on to the next point, the next feature
Do you
and
like
benefit.
HD?
Yeah.
No.
It's... Thankfully, I don't know if those days are gone, but certainly I think if you want to be successful, those days are gone. Now it's much more about what problem am I solving?
The story's there. Yeah.
What problem am I solving? And, so people have got to, and that all comes through your questioning, your discovery. When someone says, say, Ruben, does your product do this? Old features and benefits. They've got, oh yeah, it does that. And it does it like this. Oh, the bloke's really interested. I go back to my boss. He asked me a question about that. It was spot on. Our product really satisfies that. I've got a good feeling about this. Whereas today you'd say, Ruben would say, does your product do this? And I say, can I just ask, what's important about that for you?
Right.
So when you then go back, you're much more specific about the problem that you're solving, rather than saying, yeah, our product does that. Yeah, but you still don't know why they asked you that question. There is a temptation to just dive straight in.
And especially with sales people, they know the end goal is commission.
Yeah.
So the thinking is very rarely, why is this good or bad, or why. It's usually get to the yes. Just get to the yes, regardless of if you have to do anything.
Yeah.
And then there's very rarely reflection, because it's, as you said, it's, okay, that's $1,000. Where's my next grand?
Well, it's a KPI. So many companies set the shite KPIs, where it's like...
Where it's just sales.
Well, it's just vanity metrics.
Yeah.
It's like,
KPIs.
the amount of mates that I have in various fields, and let's call farmer, and it's not even about the sale. A lot of these guys, they call it... what was it, like hit rate, where basically how many times have you actually got in front of or got your sales leaflet or document in front of a GP or a practice manager. So it's not even about the conversation or whether you've actually teased out any information.
Just door knocks, yeah.
It's like, that is literally pointless.
When I was in double glazing, it was all door knocks. All of it was like, do 1,000 doors, you're guaranteed these results. And the expectation was if you were good enough at sales, you would get those results. But then, but after a little while of not getting those results, whereas most people after one day of not getting anywhere near that were like, how is my entire success, like it's raining, you know what I mean? But I think it's interesting how also the way people want to be sold to has changed.
Well, absolutely. Look, if you're a buyer now, when I first started out in sales, the only way people could really find out what was available in the market was to get salespeople in. There was no internet. It was, people might put stuff in the post. So you'd physically go and see people to explain to them what you can do and what's out there. Today, virtually anything you want to buy, you can probably shortlist just by going on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. And you can have 400 options.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And this sort of links into another kind of pet hate of mine. And, you know, if there are sales leaders watching this, I would urge them to do this the next time they're doing a pitch. So I remember joining an organisation, and I said to the, I think it was head of sales, I said, take me through the last deal that you lost in terms of your pitch. And he said, oh, right, okay. So went off, came back, fired it up. He said, this is the thing. He said, we did a lot of work on this, spent a lot of time with the prospect. We're really disappointed to lose it. I said, oh, okay, well, take me through the deck. So as he opened up the deck, I went 1, 2. So every time he opened up a slide, I counted a number. And he was looking at me and he's thinking, who is this bloke?
Yeah. Okay.
He said, what to do.
There you go. Shirley, never let this man in the building again.
He said, I could see it go through his mind.
Yeah.
So he's almost frightened to open the next page. But anyway, got to 10. And I said, stop. And he's looking at me and he said, what's on? I said, it's taken you 10 slides before you mentioned anything that was of interest to the client, to the prospect. The first 9 slides were, here's a picture of our head office. Here's a list of the awards we've won.
Oh, no.
Here's this, that, and the other. Slide 10.
Yeah, but the awards, surely they made a difference.
Here's
They are.
here's the school my son went to because of this company I own. Yeah.
And so I said to him, as far as I'm concerned, slide 1. Slide 1 has to be that it could even be a little bit antagonistic. It's a statement. This is what I said. Who was in the room? And he said, oh, we had HR direct. No, I think we had finance director and procurement director. I said, well, that's interesting because I think it was 25 slides in total. I said, 12 of your slides were HR related. And you had procurement and finance in the room. So they'd gone in, and HR was typically very involved in the kind of decision of this sort of product. So it's understandable it was there, but there was no thinking, oh, hang on, let's tweak this. Maybe it's the same HR-y type message, but with a procurement spin on it, or with a finance spin on it, or whatever it might. There was no thought. It was automatic pilot. And so that was an eye-opener. That was an eye-opener for him. And again, it's another example of where a little bit more time to just think about the individual opportunity can go such a long way.
I think there's a lot of power, especially in sales, in actually withholding information at the start. And when someone first explained to me the concept of an elevator pitch, it's like you got 30 seconds to say, to make me care. By saying, instead of rattling off the benefits or why you're good or why I'm the smartest person in this room, blah, 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 you say, I think I've got a solution. I think it pairs well with everything you're doing. I think it pairs well with what I'm doing. There's nuance to it. Let's work together. But I'd like to work. I just going down the sort of personable route, but leaving it quite open-ended. Because the best thing in sales is when they then want you to carry on. Instead of them going, oh, great, slide 34.
Emotion plays a big part in the buying process. People buy for the experience, what they think it's going to do for them. So some person might say, if I put this in, I'm going to get promoted. If other people put it in, they might say, I'm going to look really good because I've ticked this box for the organisation. There's something in it for them. Sometimes the commercials are almost irrelevant. If it was all about commercials, remember the big deal on one with the people who were arguing in the room? We were at £7 something a unit. The incumbent was at £2.50. And we won it. And we won it.
Yeah.
So it's, if you can demonstrate the value of your price, it doesn't have to be the lowest price. But it's getting people to understand the value. And of course, that value can be measured in different ways for different people, depending on who they are.
Well, we talked about fashion last time and saying someone knows they can get away with charging 10 grand a t-shirt because they know that people know. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's so many. And I find energy interesting because you'd think it would all be about price. You think people would care only about the bottom line. But again, psychology plays into it. They go, well, no, I don't like this supplier. And you're like, I know, but this is going to save you 100 grand a year. And they go, yeah, I don't like them. And you go, okay, back to the drawing board. I'm not pitching the right product here because they don't care about money. And another, when we used to sell card machines a lot more, and we had big, like 30 card machines for a hotel chain, he'd go, you've saved me $250,000. How do I get all these into my building without losing payment processing for an hour? And we're like, that's the pain point. It's not the money, because he didn't care about $250,000. He went, does this disrupt the day? And we were like, yeah, it does. And he was like, fuck off then. So it's just fun. Yeah.
So that quality of discovery call is the thing. And the beauty about sales now is that, you know, due to the power of LinkedIn, that you've got access to so much good stuff, so many good people. You know, a couple that I follow in particular, Salman Mahidin and Kyle Assay. Look them up on, you know, some of the content they put out is just phenomenal and for real. And it's stuff that you can take and apply tomorrow. And it's really, really good stuff. So, you know, there's never been a better time to be in sales if you're prepared to look and see what good looks like.
Couldn't agree more. But I would say on that point of how good content is out there, you know, on LinkedIn and all these other sources, YouTube, people breaking things down. Why do you think that there's still such a high turnover rate of salespeople? And also success rate. And I guess there's nuance and, again, intricacies where people in certain positions.
Okay, so let's look at sales turnover. Remember, we talked about sales being a process. That process also has a timescale. So if your sales process is typically 12 months and you bring a salesperson in, realistically, it's going to take them 12 months before they start. Why are you kicking the hell out of them at month 6 because they're not doing it yet? Because your pipeline, it takes 12 months. So I think part of that pressure comes from the organisation, and that's why they often try to shortcut that 12 months by saying, get someone with industry experience.
Yeah.
So you've got to look at sales PM. This is a really difficult thing to do. You've got to look at a salesperson and say, am I prepared to invest in you with, in year 1, possibly little return? That's a far bigger decision than just, let's take a salesperson on. Okay, they may get lucky. They might shortcut that or whatever. They might take over and inherit the existing pipeline and do something with it. But if you know it's 12 months, why are you going to put someone under pressure? Because guess what? That person goes and another person comes in and they need 12 months. And you get into this cycle.
The cost is heavy.
And the cost is heavy. The cost on business, the cost on recruitment, the cost of disruption, and probably from a sales leader's perspective, the cost to you. Because guess what? Because you probably go out and do to cover, to make up for. So, you know, bearing in mind that a lot of sales leaders have been very good doers in their time. So because they can do, they'll often go out and do it. Now that's okay once in a while, but if you're having to do that constantly, you're not leading, you're just doing. The most difficult transition to make is to have success, achieve success through others, and to be happy about the fact that others are achieving that success. You know, if my top salesperson earned more than me, he deserved it, because every commission structure I've put in place has been profit based, not revenue based, profit based. So if you're paying out a profit, there's no...
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, everyone's winning.
Everyone's winning.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing that I think is a big issue in companies today, sort of linked to that whole playbook concept. And I would really, if I was a salesperson going for a job, one of the things I'd ask, tell me about your playbook. If I join you tomorrow, where do I go to get examples of this, examples of that? What's the personas? Who are the people that you sell to? So what does procurement look for? What does HR look for? And I bet you in a lot of instances, that interviewer would go, well, sort of, it's in a file somewhere on the C drive or something. And, but that's got to be living and breathing a document. And another sort of extension of that, something that often businesses or individuals complain about, is we haven't got case studies. We haven't got any case studies. We need case studies. Let's say you've got 100 clients, right? And out of those 100 clients, you've got 5 case studies. And they're the same 5 that you regurgitate every time. So those 5 case studies, you say, prospect was here, we identified this, and the end result was this. And there's a statement at the end from the client saying, yeah, that's all true, they were bloody brilliant. You've got 95 other clients. Those other 95 clients, you could write, they were here, we did this, and this was the outcome. The only difference is, you haven't got the client saying, yeah, that's all true. Your job as the salesperson is to say, take your top 20 and know what that story is on each of those 20. So when you go into a prospect, you can say, oh yeah, we've got a client who operates in your sector and they experienced this issue. Tell me, how do you deal with that? Just
move the mic a little bit closer, just to make sure you
picked up. So yeah. You've got a client in that, you're a client in that sector. Tell me, how do you deal with this particular problem? Now that's a wholly different, you're doing that from knowledge.
Very disarming as well.
Yes.
Because immediately they're thinking, right, okay, he actually understands my nuance a bit, and people love talking about themselves anyway.
Yeah.
So then it immediately sets you 3 stages ahead in that conversation, doesn't it?
But you're basing that on the evidence that you've got from the clients you've already won. So if you're in an organization where you've got sales here and you may have account management over here, if you're a salesperson, one of your best mates in that organization needs to be the head of account management. Why? Because that head of account management is facing all the challenges through our clients that your prospects are facing. So you want to be talking to him and saying, in the pharma sector, for example, what are clients saying about that? Oh yeah, we've just had to change this and change that. Thank God we did, because this was the result. They seem to be going this way. Oh, right. When I go out to the next pharma client, that's how you differentiate. So this myth about we haven't got case studies, you've got success stories. The only difference is that someone from that company hasn't said, yeah, this is true. It's the only difference.
Facts tell, stories sell.
Indeed.
Yeah, so just off camera then, by the way, this isn't just launched straight into it. We were just talking there about humbling yourself, and you use the word concession. In a leadership position, you must make concessions to people perhaps in the company come below you in the official ranking, but however, just because they're below you doesn't mean their input is any less valuable. And often it's people who are in that position who are looking at something in a way you're not. And it's just accepting that. And I was, there's a very good example when I used to work in hospitality. We used to, have I talked about this before, the hospitality thing? I used to look after shoots. Be like a group of between 5 and 20, and they'd all be down for the weekend shooting or whatever. And you'd look after them. It was always my job to look after that group of people. And in that, it was my first education in business, because they were often very rich. They'd spend 100 grand on a weekend.
Wow.
Big money. And the shoot would cost them 20 grand a day. And they did not, who cares, right? And one of the richest guys I think I've still ever met, owned a massive tech company in Ireland, and sold it to the government for hundreds and hundreds of millions. And he was the sole owner of this company, and he built it from scratch. A very interesting guy, but couldn't bullshit him. And the people around him knew he was in charge of that. It was his day, right? Anyway, he used to only ever have meetings in restaurants because he wanted to see how the other person would treat someone who wasn't him, someone in society deems as less whatever. And he had a very good example of this guy that was pitching him whatever it was a vegetarian, and the waiter got the order wrong. And before, the guy hadn't eaten anything, but the waiter came over and was like, "I'm really sorry, I brought you, this isn't right, okay, this has got meat product in it, whatever." And that guy turned around to the waiter and said, what are you doing? You fucking idiot, right? The guy who was pitching, my friend, went, "Okay, you are one of the worst people I've ever met, because if I was that waiter, you would have said the same to me." And the guy immediately was like, "Oh no, I've just," and he was like, no. The way you treat people who you owe nothing to, and they are just doing a job. I used to be a waiter. That's what he said to him. And that contract was worth £50 million. So imagine that guy going back to his boss and saying, "Oh, how did it go?" Wow. And he had to go, "Yeah, I'm actually a prick, and I'm going to leave your company now because I've bollocksed it up."
Jeez.
And it's learning things like that. When I was a waiter and someone who is sat, he was pissed, but so was I. Hearing that from someone at a very young age is like, that's how you become successful.
But we all make mistakes. I mean, that's a pretty big one, but we all do make mistakes, and how you bounce back from them, I think, is really important. I've been in situations where I ended up being made redundant. I had one situation where I went into a role where I was expected to do great things and I didn't. So you've got to be able to take the blows as well. And sometimes these things are, outside of your control. Certainly, I think on a couple of occasions, I probably created my own situation. But you've got to be able to take those knocks. You've got to be able to look at yourself, and you've got to be able to pick yourself up. In my working life, there's only been once where I've been unemployed, if you like, to the extent where I had to think about going and signing on. And the only reason I did it was because if I didn't sign on, I couldn't get my mortgage protection insurance to pay out. So I had to go and sign on, and I had to go to the local town centre where I live to go and see a careers person to tell me, well, what you're doing, are you applying for jobs and all the rest of it. And I just thought, I know what I'm doing. Of course I am. But that experience, I actually turned around and said it was a good thing, because I'd been riding the sort of a crest of a wave for a bit of a time and probably got a bit complacent. I then lost my job without, for the first time in my life, a prospect of just going into another one. And that brought me back down to earth a bit. So I almost think that was a good experience for me, just to reset my kind of
ego.
Yeah, you're not invincible. The real world applies to you as it does to anybody else. And of course, in sales, you're only as good as your last deal or your last quarter or your last year or whatever. So the pressure's always on. Being able to take the knocks, I think, is and be resilient is a really important part of what we do. I think one of the things I wanted to touch on was, because believe it or not, I was on Question Time the other week, last week. So I do pay quite a lot of attention to politics. And I was thinking about how sales applies in politics, not in terms of the way that they answer questions and deflect questions. Let's take something really pragmatic and why I think we should be changing the way that we do things. The government has a target to hit 1.5 million houses built over the lifetime of the Parliament, okay? So, and I watched an interview a couple of weeks ago with the housing minister where he accused the interviewer of trying to do a gotcha moment when she said to him, how many houses have you built this year? And he said, oh, well, you've obviously got the figures, so you're going to try and catch me out. And I sat there and thought, well, you're the housing minister. Your sole job, your commitment is to build 1.5 million houses over 5 years. If you think about that from a sales process, and so imagine him as the salesperson working for the government to deliver I'm the housing minister. I'm going to deliver 1.5 million. That's what you want me to do. So where would you start? You'd say, right. And one of the things, the only stat he came up with in that interview was planning applications have increased by 29% year on year. Okay, right. So then you say, excuse me. If you go, I think a planning application lasts for about 10 years or something. So, but did you know that for most planning applications that go in today, they take about 700 days before you get a decision? So there's 700 days gone. Then you've got the period from when the planning application is given to when they first get the shovel in the ground. Then you've got the period it takes them to build the houses, etc., etc. So shouldn't he be saying, right, we built 200,000 homes last year based on the plannings and the applications and the times. This year, at the moment, because everything's from the time before, you can't apply, build, and all in the same kind of period. But he had no knowledge of that. So he should be saying, right, to get to 300 houses a year, 300,000, we've got to do double what we 50% more than we did last year. Right, okay, so how many planning applications do we need? How many of those do we need to have started? Oh, wait a minute. What about construction workers? How many of those do we need? So
resource and what have you.
Then, if you have a question with him, he could say, looking at all the movable metrics to get to our 1.5 million, this is the bit where we're short. This is what the government's doing to do that. We're going to recruit so many more people because we're going to put these courses into colleges and what have you. We're going to do something with the planning laws to get that 700 days down to 350. What a difference that will make. And then suddenly you get some real sense of what they're actually doing to bring about the end result. Whereas today they kind of said, well, it's in our intention and yes, we are good, but they don't put anything concrete behind it. And I just think that's where we're going wrong. We're full of very good intention, but often the action don't match the words.
Is that, and it's a great point, and I'm naive to this probably. You're applying your experience from your career, same logic, to a governmental position.
Yeah.
And from my limited understanding of politics and its positions, but you don't necessarily, the way it works is you don't have to have experience or even a particular role to get roles within government. So look at a chancellor. I think, was it Jeremy? He doesn't have he's not an economist.
Well, he has
credentials.
owned a business and built a business.
Yes,
so
he sold it very
but
successfully.
I think but this is the issue I have. If you are going to be the main man if you're one of the top men in the country, responsible for building 1.5 million houses, I'd expect you to be at a certain quality in terms of actions, not words. Okay, the words are great because you can deflect the questions that you're getting and you can not answer the question. But I think people, through social media now, and so much of what is on social media, where the people who are delivering social media content are telling you the truth, it exposes the kind of deflecting tactics that we see from our politicians. And I think it's one of the reasons why people lose faith in it. Just give us a straight answer.
Do you think that person would love to give a straight answer, but because of what happens in the background of our politics, that he doesn't have one? Because there is no where there's like, he would love to sit in front of you, the journalist, and say, Tony, these are the steps, this is how we're doing it, here's how we're funding it. But he's so castrated by the actual infrastructure of politics at the moment that he's like, fuck me, we haven't got any money.
I mean, this isn't a political podcast, but as we're talking on this point, I think this is one thing that really gets me is we've got the grooming gang scandal, okay? Without doubt, one of the biggest scandals to hit this country ever.
Yep.
I'm a local Labour MP, and my constituents feel very strongly about this. I'm going into the Houses of Parliament tomorrow to vote on whether we should do a national inquiry. I personally feel very strongly about this as an MP. I rock up to the Houses of Parliament. Someone pulls me aside and says, Sakira said, no, we're not voting for. We're going to vote against it. How does that work? How does that actually work? I represent my constituents. I've got my own point of view, but my leader says to me to vote no against something that, and this was the question I asked actually on Question Time a couple of weeks ago, but I put it to you that the way that the politicians have behaved over this, we will all be held to account by future generations. When our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids are doing history in 100 years' time, they're looking back and saying, "Oh, 2000 to 2025,
COVID."
This grooming scandals went on, and then they were it was the biggest tragedy of all time, and the Labour MPs voted against it, and then the national inquiries, they people kept leaving and what have you. What were they thinking? What were they doing? And then they're going to say, well, hang on a minute. Wasn't it around about those time people were taken to the streets about other things that were going on in the world? Why didn't the likes of the three of us take to the streets and say, hang on a minute, this needs to be looked into? So by default, we're being kind of tarred, if you like, with the same brush of apathy than the politicians are. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
That's why you went on.
Well, I went on because I'm interested in politics, and
you're a big fan of Question Time.
I'm a big fan of Question Time, and I wanted to ask that question. The other, you get to ask two questions. So the one question I asked on grooming gang, and I was actually picked out to ask a question, so you'll see me on there. But the other question was, why doesn't Rachel Reeves just come clean and put a penny on income tax or whatever on income tax? Everyone knows it's coming. Okay, yes, it breaks your manifesto, but just be honest with people. instead of trying to go round the houses to find a little bit from a pot there and a little bit from a pot there. You know, the whole thing about taxing the private schools. We estimate 3,000 to 5,000, I think it was, of people would leave private schools, go into the state sector. Obviously, we have to pay for them to go into the state sector. We've accounted for that in our numbers. So the net surplus will be X amount. I believe it's about 20 to 25,000 have gone into the state sector. So, of course, their numbers have completely skewed.
There goes the bottom line.
So, you know, and that's the problem with fiddling around with things where you're doing it on the spin, and they haven't necessarily been thought through, and there's unintended consequences that potentially come with that. So,
do you know, talking about, you said the trust, do you know who I've seen is becoming rapidly advancing actually in people's opinion as the new leader of the Green Party? That Zach?
Yeah.
Because he has an amazing ability to stand in front of everyone and go, I'm going to be really honest with you. Oh, you're all right.
Yep.
You've done that's something. Maybe it's that chair because Rude did the exact same.
I did indeed.
Yes.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
He's very honest, and I think even people who would never ever before debate the Green Party as a potential candidate for them just want they just follow the honesty.
I think that's so true. They just want the honest answer because we're not ill-informed anymore. We're not stupid.
Not docile.
You know, there's so much
yeah.
information out there. Just and if you tell people the truth, and you're trying to take the country on a journey with you. We know it's bad. We're paying 100 and something billion pound a year in debt interest.
Yep.
You know, our debt is at almost 3 trillion or whatever it is. We know it's bad. So, you know, and if we want public services, we've got to pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. So take people on a journey where you're, and this is where for me, it crosses over from between leading the country and doing what we need to do to try and make the country prosperous versus personal power retention. So there comes a point where actually it's more important that we stay in power and we don't lose to reform, or, you know, conservatives come back. But if you were to, I think if you tried a different way of, and also this idea of party politics, that should go. On certain things, it should be cross-party, and the grooming gangs is one, for example. I think the NHS is another. How we're going to deal with people living longer and older. That isn't a political football. That should be cross-party concession, where everyone is working. We should have a 25-year plan, and whoever comes in within that 25 years, that's the plan we're working to. Because what happens now is you get 5 years, new plan. Oh, if reform win the next time, a new plan. The cost of all these new plans and in time and money is crazy.
It's why I think the system is set up to your vote meaning very little.
Yeah.
Because regardless of how much someone tells you their party's different, they have as you say, a tiny, tiny window to implement the changes they promise. And then you do see that with political campaigns. The light dies about a year and a half in. Everyone at the start, everyone's really excited. This is a new, fresh start, blah, 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 blah. And then 12 months in, they're like, yeah, remember those things? Just going to not be possible, I'm afraid, now.
And you've seen numerous parties in your 60-odd years, right? You've seen numerous parties come and go and different manifestos and what have you. Do you feel like everything, we all feel so divided now? Is that just because of social media? Or do you get a general feeling when you go to the pub or you're out, or when you're speaking to people, catching up with friends, does it feel like it's exaggerated, is what I'm trying to say right now? Or has it always been the case?
No, I think...
so left and so right, and you're I would say, I get the feeling you're probably centralist. More.
Yeah, I'm... do you know what? If there's an election tomorrow, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I wouldn't know what to do.
Really?
And who to vote. I really wouldn't. It's.
But that is quite worrying.
It is. I think, actually, when it comes to it, Labour, Conservative, because they're all trying to get the middle ground, there's not that much differential. It's hard. Whereas when they used to be Tory, old Labour, you kind of knew what you were getting.
There were distinct camps,
yeah,
weren't there? Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that, because there's a lot of people in that middle. But it does make it it comes down to personalities, and that's a dangerous thing.
Trump's a great example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Refreshing, weird personality publicly, and people just were like, that is better than the Clintons. That will take that. Whatever that is, we're having that. And do you know what? Good luck to Zach. Good luck to Zach. Maybe he can do it. Maybe he can get the Greens in.
I think we have to be careful with insulting people's intelligence by saying, well, if you like Nigel Farage, you're obviously this. And if you like Zach Polanski, you're obviously that. The question you should be asking is, what is it they're doing that's getting the vote, getting people's attention, getting them to win in the opinion polls? Rather than trying to rubbish them as individuals and all that kind of stuff, think about what can you do. And I think I don't think it has to be in that in your face kind of, well, let's just tell people that they're really bad people and whatever, they're going to believe us. It comes down to action speaking louder than words. And I think, Starmer as a lawyer, I think of Keir Starmer as a lawyer, as when you're in court, right, and we've all watched the films, it becomes who can put over an argument that gets 12 people to agree with you. It's almost like the truth is kind of in there somewhere, but actually it's that
Public
debating,
court.
of. And so what Starmer clearly shows is he can deflect a lot of stuff, and he can get you round to his kind of version of the reality of what's going on. But is it the actual truth? And I think that's okay in a courtroom, unless you come out with the wrong verdict, of course. But in politics, where you've actions have got to really count. I think on a number of fronts, he's lacking. There's been some positives, but then even the positives, they don't seem to be able to cut with people. People aren't thinking, oh, we've done some good stuff here. So I'm really struggling to understand where they're going with this. And I think there is a link between what goes on with companies. We've all worked in companies where you say, well, how the hell did that person get into that job?
Yeah.
And even worse, how they managed to keep it. Because everyone can see that
it's obvious. It's staring you in the face.
You know? So and that whole thing about how you manage up and manage down, and the politics, the higher you get up, is really important. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not particularly good at that, because I am quite straight. And it's never really been a strength of mine. I prefer to call a spade a spade.
Can I just challenge that in a way, though, because I do believe you've gone from, sales, bottom of the end sales employee to CEO, running an organisation for a few years, right?
Yes, and but I've broadly got into positions based on my proven performance in terms of delivery. When it comes to the kind of not so obvious areas like politics, like how do you deal with people who are maybe not necessarily supporting you but are in a superior position, and things like that, I guess that's where I can be very impatient. So I've had to try and temper some things about my natural personality in order to get to where I got to. And that wasn't always easy. But the politics side of things has always been an area where, if that's been my Achilles heel, I'd say it was probably that.
Yeah, I think the modern company requires, the real marketing comes from the way marketing's the way you're perceived, but I think a real strength now for modern CEOs is how much of a politician are you? How likable are you? Because if you got to go and stand in front of all these cameras and explain why you dumped a load of waste, but you can make two people laugh and you're quite funny on Twitter, just that little, it's just enough nowadays, I think, to people to then go, well, yeah, you know what I mean.
I mean, you say about getting to CEO, and I have to say that, people of colour who become CEOs in the UK,
I believe it's black now. You're not allowed to say of colour.
Yeah, is a small percentage, and so I was actually a reluctant CEO because I was the business development director at the organisation at the time, and it was actually sort of in some ways due to my fellow members of the senior management team who encouraged me to put myself forward. And I thought, actually, one of the biggest challenges that I will face making that transition from SMT to the leader is how all the people who were once my peers now feel about reporting into me. So the fact that they were saying, actually, we would support you if you put your name forward, kind of almost took that worry away. I thought, well, if they're saying that, then, they can deal with the consequences. So I took it on the interim to start with, and then it got made permanent. But nobody can take away the fact that I was the CEO of a long-standing, well-respected business that actually does a lot of good. And it sort of ignited my passion in road safety. And there's so much more that we need to do around road safety. And I'll use you two as an example, actually. So in 2024, the figures got released in September last month. How many people do you think died on the UK roads as a result of road collisions?
6,000? Plucked it.
I'm going to say probably more like 40 or 1,000.
Died.
What have we got? 70 million people on the road. Sorry, yeah, more like go 20. Go 20,000.
1,600.
Okay.
Oh.
So we are probably third or fourth best in the world in terms of our road safety performance. But think about it, that's 30 people a week.
Well, yeah, one's too many, isn't it?
Absolutely. So 30 people a week. Of those, 692 were car occupants. 25% of those car occupants were not wearing a seatbelt.
Really? Still, that always amazes me when people don't wear it.
I know quite a few people that don't.
My car beeps.
Yeah. No, you've got a thing where you don't have to put the seatbelt on. You've got a little.
Show me that later.
Gadget.
No, I'm joking.
But it's so that in itself. So drink driving still a major problem on UK roads. So if you go back 15 years, they were doing 500,000-600,000 roadside breath tests a year. 500,000-600,000, and about 11% testing positive. The last year that we have got for full figures, I think it's 2023, 240,000 tests, 17% testing positive.
Whoa.
So I put it to you, if you were still doing 500,000, how many people would be stopped? So that means there's an awful lot of people driving and getting away with it. So we're just coming up to another 4-6 weeks. We'll be into the annual Christmas drink drive campaign. 1st of December to the 1st of January. Last year, I think it was about 7,500 people were stopped and were tested for suspicion of drug driving. 50% of those tested positive.
For drug, you say drug?
For drug driving.
That's probably you, mate.
So
a long time ago it would have been.
You know, and when I go and talk to businesses and I go and talk to business drivers, I say I sort of talk about these facts, not to kind of say, I think you're part of the problem, you're driving to do your job. But you are sharing the road with people who are behaving like that. So when your company says to you that they want you to undergo a little bit of training or view some data or read some stuff, it's not because they are saying you're bad people and whatever. It's about making you safe and giving you the opportunity to think about, how can I make sure that if the people around me happen to be one of those people, how can I make sure that I can escape or protect myself in this little bubble that I've created of space that allows me time to make the decisions that I might need to make.
Is there a reason personally you chose this? How did it come to you, the drive? Because I know from a bird's eye view, you've gone sales,
yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
You know
well, I mean, I suppose there is an element of selling to what I do today, because what I'm doing, I'm selling the fact that we will put in place processes to make sure that drivers are legally compliant, and we provide the training courses and what have you. I suppose, working at IAM Road Smart was a real eye opener, because there was a lot of ex-traffic police worked for the organisation in senior positions, and listening to stories from them. It's interesting, isn't it? Something happens and someone says, "Oh, it's good. The police have turned up." Well, if that police person's turned up to a road traffic where a car's gone into the back of an Arctic lorry and has concertinaed like that, and it's the policeman's responsibility to go around and actually have a look at that and determine, okay, what's occurred, what do I need to do with? I remember one guy saying to me, he'd done his 30 years in the force and come out, and he said, I still get flashbacks to the very first call where I was the lead officer. So he was the one that went round and saw the car go from that to that with a person in it. And he said it was just at Christmas time, and there was a Christmas card in the footwell. And when I went to the family home to tell them what had happened, I took the Christmas card with me.
Oh, Christ. Happy Christmas, that one. Jesus. Well, that's pretty bad.
So, and I think it sort of resonated with me. And so, I am passionate about it. But there is a very strong kind of legal obligation on organisations to do things. But I don't tend to go with the legal argument. I tend to push on the company is doing this because it cares about you and it wants you to get home at night. If you think about it, if you're driving 15 hours a week on business, that's a third of your working week, or 35% of 40% of your working week spent doing the most dangerous work-related activity. So of those 692 people in a vehicle, around 25% are thought, 20 to 25% are thought to be driving on business. So if you look at the number of people who've died in the workplace, on average each year, it's about 140. So that's all your construction and all of those put together is 140. Yet driving on business, 170, 180.
And are your sort of people you're talking to, like, so it's be like a lorry firm sort of thing,
so
or is it anything?
Blue chip companies who employ, like pharma companies who employ salespeople, so they're all in company cars. Big fleets, yes, and there are some really big fleets that we that I deal with, and I suppose in a way it ties into where I am now. It's not particularly I'm not particularly motivated by the cash I can earn from getting a client to sign up. It's more about making a difference to those drivers and those clients. So we've recently launched a service where if someone's been involved in a pretty serious incident, we do a one-to-one detailed conversation with them to understand the facts behind what happened and what have you. And then I conduct that call. So I speak with the driver. It lasts about an hour. And then I make a judgment from that as to what we should potentially do next. So I take all the evidence I've got. So how many collisions they've had, how many points on their license, are they someone that gets a lot of fines? And you build up a picture of that driver. In this case, I had footage from the incident as well. And you have a conversation with them. And what's really interesting is that you realise, actually, most people getting into a car to work on business or even for their own commute have got stuff going on up here. You know, if you've got money worries, if you've got marriage issues, if you're worried about your kids, you know, you don't suddenly, just because you're getting in the car and you're driving now to go and see a client, it doesn't leave you, does it?
No,
in fact,
makes it worse.
You've got that, and then if you're someone who's taking phone calls, okay, legally through hands-free, you've got a lot of stuff going on. And then you've got these idiots around you. So, you know, if you can have conversations with people, and so I recently did one with someone, had a conversation with them, recommended the training, they've done the training, and then I do a couple of follow-up calls with them after. And what really made me feel good was she said, the training was brilliant, and I'm putting the training into place. So, you know, I'm much more conscious of what's going on around me. I've stopped using my phone as much. And I think, do you know what? That's brilliant. I've made a difference.
What would you say? Because I know quite a lot of people that are, whether they're doing 30, 40,000 miles a year. I used to be one of them. That you're doing a fair bit now. Many of my friends will go on we're going out. They'll be on the phone. It might not even be on the, you know, when you've got one.
The clip.
The clip, yeah. But they'll still be going, literally just driving up and down. And you say to them, you know, God, mate, just put it away. But you sort of...
Well, that's 6 points. If you're caught, that's 6 points. So right. 2 of those and you're potentially off the road. So it's
a bit second though. That's what,
but we are breeding people and kids now who are literally the phone is an extension of their body.
Yes.
So how do they get in a car, drive for an hour and a half without checking their WhatsApp, their TikTok,
I guess they're hoping that by the time they're driving, cars drive themselves.
Well, unless also there must be. Is there any data on since electric cars, because the acceleration is a lot faster typically than the standard? All of them are 0 to 60 in.
Oh yeah,
that must be.
But is the technology in those cars better in terms of like a threat detection? Do you know what I mean? Is there like is it more? I don't know, but I would assume in Teslas.
The technology is it can.
I forgot the word technology there.
Yeah, how's that possible? Yeah, the technology is improving all the time.
Yeah.
But Ruben's point about the fact that you've got what will be seen as fairly basic cars with acceleration that you would have associated with supercars 10, 15 years ago. So, you know, and of course, as that becomes mainstream and petrol and diesel is phased out, that will become the norm. So, but and of course, all electric cars are automatic. So the whole idea of having to learn the gears and, you know, clutch and controller, it's all going. So that skill of driving and the boredom associated with with something that semi-drives itself or what have you is something that we really need to come to terms with. So the way I look at it is when I say to drivers about, oh, you know, you've got to do some e-learning or whatever, I say, look, what we're trying to do is we're trying to, and this applies almost to salespeople as well, we're trying to just give you exposure to things, hoping that one or two things will stick. And those one or two little things might make an improvement. And then over time, they build up to 6, 7, 8, 10 little things. So it's all about habits. So when you get in your car, carrying all this stuff in your head, your start point in terms of the habits that you employ when you're driving have gone from here to here. So you're safer by default because you're so that's what we're trying to, or that's what I try to get across to people. Because you can look at it another way and you can say, okay, you're a business driver, you're busy, you're important, you've got to get from here to there, your phone's going, you've got to do this and and all the rest of it. But put yourself now in the position of being a victim. Someone that you love has been impacted by someone else's behaviour on the road. And you find out that they work for Joe Bloggs Limited. And then you find out that Joe Bloggs Limited didn't do the basic stuff that they should do to make sure that that driver had all the things necessary to allow them to drive on business. And, you know, the boss of the business stands up and says, well, of course, we're really sorry about what happened to your loved one, but, you know, we've got 1,000 drivers. It's very difficult to keep a control on all of them. And, you know, it's really busy and we've got all this data coming in from all over the place. We can't always interpret it, but we're really sorry.
You say, I don't give a shit, Mum. I just lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
what are the legal implications?
There are legal implications. So if you wouldn't be happy as a victim hearing that, would you be happy to be the perpetrator of that and have your MD stand up and defend you on that basis?
I also just know that you've killed someone or put someone in a...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would, for me, I think that would be the worst part, knowing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, yep, just turned 40, they won't. That's brilliant. That's all me.
So when you
Get
talk
in.
about addictions and sort of what sort of drives me, I'm sort of not addicted to it, but I'm very focused on how I can make a difference in terms of road safety.
And I guess with that, you must be thinking about, well, what is it about current society, culture, meaning, purpose, people's livelihoods, where they are getting in a car intoxicated or on drugs? It's so readily available now. The drug problem, you know, everyone talks about America with fentanyl and OxyContin, the pain drugs. We've got it just here just as bad now. There's a new drug with universities they've just they're exploring with. It's just crazy how, you know, we never needed it, but when we turned 21 and suddenly it was available everywhere.
Well, it's funny. I was looking at this only yesterday. The government produced quite a lot of data, and they produce a report where people self-declare whether they think they've either driven when over the limit or they've driven after having some level of alcohol, but they don't know if they were over or not. And the number of people, I from memory now, I think, who said they did it at least once or twice a year, knowingly drive over the limit, was about 8%. So we've got some work to do to convince people that that's just not acceptable. And I think there are some similarities here in terms of how do you get a sales team stuck in its ways, always done things this way, to kind of make these changes. Okay, that's a sort of a social thing, and you know it's absolutely what they should do, and there's legal consequences. But you know there can often be organisations that are just stuck in the old way of doing things. You know, it used to be that if someone had moved around a lot, oh, don't touch them, they're not going to stay and what have you. I think it's gone the reverse now, where you've got people who've stayed for 20 years in the same place. Oh, you know, one trick pony. They're
the same years,
yeah,
20 times over.
and that's one of my favourite expressions, that you meet people who've done 1 year 20 times. And
you have to be able to adapt now. The world we're heading to, you know, look at all the.
Oh well, hold
growth.
on, because there might be some people who are very happy doing 1 year, 20 years.
You can stay happy, but you will be out of work, or you'll be you'll be very uncomfortable, because you have to be able to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. I think it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're a salesperson doing 1 year 20 times and you're constantly hitting target, and so there are some sales teams where good old John had been here 20 years. Don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
And just leave John alone.
Yeah.
You know,
he doesn't do the forms.
No,
he doesn't do the forms.
He's not going to change.
I know a John,
but he delivers.
Yeah.
You know, every sales team kind of has a number of them in it.
John doesn't have an email.
Industries like that, though. I think everything's being so.
Yeah, but then you think it's also skills that are like that, though. Like, you would never slag off a receptionist for being somewhere for 20 years. Do you know what I mean? You'd never go, that cleaner's been here 20 years, fucking get a life. We're thinking, again, too similar to how we think. You know what I mean?
There's salesy.
Too salesy. Like, because, fair enough. We would never probably be anywhere for 20 years. I've never been anything more than 4.
The longest I've ever been anywhere is 5.
Where was that? What position was that?
That was IAM.
Yeah. What was that? Can you just give people a perspective on what it's like to be CEO? Because I mean, loads of people are going to be wondering that, and everyone's got this aspiration of, I want to run must be amazing to run a company and get to the top.
I think it's the title they want, though, isn't it? It's the big badge.
Yeah.
Chief Executive Officer. I want that on my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I might make it up tomorrow.
How can I put it? I mean, I think, as I say, it wasn't necessarily something I aspired to. Leadership, if you're someone, it's very difficult to please everybody all the time. So when you get into situations where you realise that someone's not bought into what you've said, or doesn't agree with it, or is unhappy with it, if you're someone who takes that to heart, it can be very difficult. Equally, if you're so far the other way, where I don't care if you get
apathetic.
upset. I don't care if you get upset, mate. Trying to find that middle ground is hard. It's hard. But I think I had enough about me to. I've got no airs and graces, so for me, I didn't think I'd kind of made it. So I was the big I am. By then, I was already into kind of. I want to help the business. I want to help the people. I was then managing people that I was on the same SMT with. So that was an interesting dynamic. And I guess that for me was always going to be the temperature test in terms of, was I doing this job well? Because if they respected me and were happy to work with me, then that would flow down to the teams that they then managed. So I actually feel as though that was quite good. If I'm brutally honest, I think the CEO role probably took me a step away from the coalface than I was really comfortable with. I guess I've always got that kind of salesperson,
boots on the ground,
kind of want to be in on the action kind of thing, and that was appropriate at times, but really, CEO of a charity, a campaigning charity, I needed to focus on building relationships with government departments, other like-minded charities, and getting coalitions and trying to affect change in road legislation and law and attitudes. And I guess that side of it, I was kind of less motivated. But it didn't fire me up as much. And actually, the engagement I had with government often left me very frustrated.
Completely different muscle, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That sort of bureaucrat, that sort of, as soon as you start getting into the realms of, oh, this is a chess game now.
Yeah.
That's a different psychological strain, because you're thinking, oh, I've actually got to get in your head, find your... It's not sales in the sense, because there's sales teaches you, I think, that there is a direct correlation to your performance and your success. Whereas when you get to politics, that level, it's a bit to do with you, but it's a bit to do with these 400 other things that have to go in your favour as well to get the comment. You know, there's a lot more, not luck,
I think,
but more into it.
Yeah, I found it difficult. You know, you may be talking to someone who's got responsibility for roads, but then you realise that actually, unless the Chancellor gives them budget to go and do something, the good ideas that you're putting forward are never going to happen.
And he only gets a budget if that happens, and that happens.
In the back of your head, you're a smart, so you're not really bought into it, because you know it's almost a waste of time.
Well, I suppose, if I'm honest, Roo, I probably reached a point where I felt that me personally, I wasn't going to be able to affect change.
That'll take the wind out of yourselves.
And because I was kind of, but then probably the other people who were sitting in that environment talking to the government would be feeling the same way, because we weren't making the progress. So, for example, the government hasn't had a road safety strategy since about 2011, 2012. They're talking about bringing one in now, which is really good news, and I hope they do. And it gives us some direction. It gives us some targets to work for. So at the time that I was talking to them, it was a bit rudderless, and you know,
what does rudderless mean? I've never heard that word.
Rudderless, you know.
Rudderless. Sorry, I was thinking it's a new.
So maybe things will change now. And I left the position of CEO because, well, a couple of reasons, but. So, you know, getting into the age I am now, and obviously I've been with my wife for 40 odd years, and
Congratulations.
We were down in Cornwall somewhere, and sitting over, looking over the view, and I said to Karen, I said, "Oh, isn't it wonderful? You know, we can come down and do this and enjoy this." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "But you're here in body, but not in mind."
Did you hear that?
Because my mind was, you know, 60 people that I'm responsible for, and you know, da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And I actually went in and resigned the next week.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons was that I felt that after all that time together, where Karen had, to a certain extent, given up her career, always worked to around the children and to bring some money into the home, and you know, have her own financial freedom, etc., but she'd never fulfilled her true potential because she invested in the children.
She did the most important job, which is
exactly. So I just felt that after 40 years, for me then to be in a position where I'm saying, "Oh, I'm doing really well. I'm CEO. I'm flying high," and you know, she's there thinking, "Well, okay, I'm at this stage of life for me now. What, you know, working with children is difficult, and do I want to continue and all that sort of thing?" And I just thought, that just doesn't seem fair. So that, coupled with other things that I were questioning whether I wanted to continue to do this, sort of came to a head, and I said, you know what? No, I don't.
Do you think it's possible for anyone in a senior position, be it CEO, CFO, own a company, business owner, director, whatever it might be, that you can do that successfully and be able to go on holiday with your missus and be there in body and in spirit and in mind? I don't. Personally, I don't believe it. You know, if you look at anybody, and on the amazing thing now, like you said, with all this tech and social media, is we can go and see the most successful people in the world. Go look at the Netflix founder, and he said, you know, on was it Thursday or Friday, he would go for a date with his wife. And it doesn't matter what was going on in the company. Netflix was about to go IPO. It was about to make millions of pounds, or company was about to fall out. He would not do. He would go to the date. He would go on the date with his wife.
I think it's I think you learn that skill by that not doing that really fucking your life up. I think you come to a point where you look at what you have, and then it immediately puts into question what you don't have. And as going back to that hospitality thing I was talking about, some of them billionaires were fucking lonely. And they were sat there going, I am worth 500 million quid. I have the biggest ego on paper, but I cannot buy my kids' affection. Saying that to me.
Yeah.
That comes down to
that is so true. And I guess I would never have wanted to compromise that or give that up.
Even in England, you thought, oh, this is a lot of money coming in here. Means we can do this or do that. Or
hey, listen, you know, the younger me, if you said to me I'd be earning what I was as CEO and I'd walk away from it, I'd have said, you're crazy. That ain't happening. I'll work my life to get to that, and then I'm going to walk away. But actually, you know, some people can take things like, oh, I'm on my third marriage, I've got 2 blended families, and they can take that in their stride and cope with it and what have you. I'm not built that way. That would haunt me. That would that would just affect my whole kind of
being.
Yeah.
I think you touched on something where your question was, can you be a high level in one degree without it affecting performing at a high level in another degree, i.e. home life? And I think it's a very interesting question, because you've got a very similar brain to me, as where we are obsessive in directions, aren't we? Like, you're a very obsessive worker, where you'll sit down 8 hours, you're in. I am in just a slightly different way, but I think you found this out, is that works very effectively for 4 weeks, and then the things that you've neglected to get to that point make your life worse than than the progress you made in the company or in your work or in your project, you know. And I think over time you learn there's a pace to life that I have to adhere to, because I've got other stakeholders in my life. And I think it's a very difficult skill to learn when you're motivated as well, because you see everything else as, regardless of your missus or your kids or whatever, you see it as a distraction. And if you've been really honest,
Absolutely.
You do see it in the end, especially at our age, you see everything else as a distraction. But then you achieve the thing that you killed yourself for, and you're like, well, I feel hollow. Why? Because you didn't adhere to the pattern.
Then we see the examples, we don't want to believe it. We want to think we can do better. We want to think we can have it all.
Yes. And I'm different to them. That won't happen to me.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I won't get burnt out.
It is tough. And balancing both, it can be very, very difficult. And I would count myself as very lucky, actually, because you know, we have a relatively boring kind of existence. So it's not like I've got drama in that side of my life. It's kind of pretty placid. It runs along just how we like it, and what have you. Okay, you've got children, grown-up kids, and you know, they all bring different challenges sometimes. You know, they need support, help, and etc. And okay, that's it. But I truly admire people who can be ultra successful, both in work and personal and seemed somehow to be able to knit it all together because...
But there's a word you said there, which is seem.
Yeah.
That's an interesting caveat, isn't it? Because, as you said earlier, from what you see out facewoodly, they've got the missus, the kids, and the life, and the holidays, and the business, and the money, and the cars, and everything, blah, blah, blah. But you don't know. You don't know. And the people I know actually who have what you just said, give them one drink, and they're like, she hates me.
I want to say my missus follows Tammy. She's really famous, absolute gorgeous bird, right? On she's an Australian model.
It's a weird detail we put in there, isn't it? We'll talk about that after the cameras.
I was like, who's this Tammy? Have a look. And yeah, she's a good bit of kit. And but the reason I was saying that, and I was just was because what she was portraying on social media was just like they just got married, and you would think they're in love. It's the most amazing life you'd ever want to live, and within I think 2 months she got divorced. But that was it just came to me because it was quite a recent example, and then she's like putting posts on crying about that, and I always find that a little bit odd as well.
It's an instant unfollow from me if I see you crying on your story. Like, see you later.
You sort of, okay, I'm crying now. I better get this. It all seems
cry in your own time. Sorry.
But before that point, you're going, fucking hell, what an amazing wedding, and he's amazing with the kids, or whatever it is they're putting out, and you just go, you can't really believe anything now, can you? And I guess we were born into this social world just on the edge of it. Bebo was our big thing. MySpace.
BBM.
Suddenly, yeah. MSN. You didn't. Do you think that is a big part of people's happiness or their?
Oh, definitely, yeah,
if it was obvious to say that, I guess, but
definitely.
What is that? I mean,
we're not biologically built to process the opinions of the entire world in all the time. It's literally impossible.
Yeah, you go into any restaurant now, you go into that, we're going for an Indian later. It'll be interesting to have a look in there. How many people are sat at the same table, both looking at their phones? What happened to the art of conversation?
I think picking you obviously got this right. You pick someone who is so aligned to the way you think. And I'm sort of guessing a bit there, but what by aligned I mean you either complement each other where you both fail, or it works because you share common values. Well,
that's a very sort of astute point, and I think when you meet somebody, there's the physical and all the rest of it. You have no idea whether what type of parent that person is going to be. So you're very lucky, I think, if you can find someone who you have that initial attraction, go through a process, you say, yeah, we're going to commit to each other for the rest of our lives. You then have children. You're then aligned in terms of how you think those children should be brought up in terms of discipline and what have you, and so on and so forth. So there is an element of luck there, and we have been very lucky in is exactly as you say. Our views were aligned in terms of. And I know from experience where relationships where one parent's over here disciplinarian wise and one is over there, and what that can cause. Because
kids just know, don't they?
Oh, they can manipulate it, but they're also victims of it as well. So I think, and so social media probably only enhances the potential for those kind of gaps to be exploited. My wife's worked with children all her life.
She's a teacher, did you say that?
She's a nursery teacher.
Nursery teacher.
So she's worked with children all her life, and she's brought up 3 kids of her own. But the modern trend now is to do things very differently with newborn babies and bringing children up to the way that we did it. And, that's positive and things change. But it's just an example of how, well, actually, I brought mine up okay, and these new ideas are kind of almost shutting me out. Not deliberately, it's just the way that, a lot of things are app driven now. You get so much information on, well, the baby's 12 weeks, should be doing this, should be doing that. Right, okay, well, we'll follow that then. And, well, hang on a minute. What about this idea? Oh, yeah, but that's from the 1980s or 1990s. We don't do that anymore. So, I guess they called it progress, but it's.
Is it progress?
Is
it one of them where there isn't a right or wrong with parent? Oh, that's weird.
I think that is the reality of it. There is no rule book, and there's no set of rules that can apply to everybody in exactly the same way. You've got to find your way through that. I tell you what, if you, in this modern era, if you can get your children to 16, 18, and they know right from wrong, they've got a good heart, they're well-grounded, well-mannered, you have absolutely achieved something.
I'll tell you what, that's probably one of the best things you've said today. And I'll add to that, if they don't want to mutilate themselves.
What, you mean physically or
physically?
Yeah.
Because they've had a bad day and someone over here, it's gone berserk out there. To even have to say that that's the thing, I find that all mental. So if I was, you've got 30 years on us, or just a bit over, your generation must look at all. I know it's been going on. It's not like we never had any transsexual people, for example.
I wondered where he was. I actually didn't know where you were going with that.
But I know I would love to get someone on to have a conversation with them, because I do understand chromosomes and various things where scientifically the body, they do feel the other way, and I absolutely empathetic with those people, because you feel like you've got this constant conflict inside of you, because you don't feel like what you portray on the outside, you don't feel on the inside, so that must be horrendous. I just think the numbers and the detransitions now from people doing it because maybe the mental health's bad, and we just go, oh no, we'll go and cut you.
I do think there is an issue with people being diagnosed with certain things that then automatically put them into a sort of a bucket where
that's you. Yeah, that's you. That's what you are. It's just a label.
So there's probably always been people who've had ADHD, and so things that you can kind of live with, but are an issue. And there will always have been people when I was growing up who were a bit different from the rest, strange, or what you call them, or overexcitable, or whatever. And in life, there are opportunities for all people, but at different levels. Anyone can achieve anything if they want to, and history proves that. But sometimes, if you're whatever it is that you've got means that you can't fulfill the same potential as maybe someone else, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you should be put into a particular bucket. It just means that you might work in a warehouse, and you might do jobs that maybe aren't so attractive or rewarding, but you can still make a living and
but they might be rewarded. But the thing, a lot of people just want to feel normal. They don't want to, like, someone
what
says,
is normal?
Yeah, but not normal, but they just want to feel normal in society. They're just a person in society, instead of like, you have this, I'm afraid. That puts you there now.
Yes.
Whereas most people say, well, can I work? It's like, yes, but you're going to, and you think, well, can I work? Yes. I just want a job then. You know what I mean? I just want to be part of the world.
The frightening thing is the number of 18 to 25-year-olds who are currently unemployed. Unemployed, or not in training or education. I mean, it is a staggering number. And I just wonder, and I've got nothing to back this up because I've never really looked into it, I just wonder whether part of that is because people are being categorized as someone who's got this or that or whatever. I'm reluctant to say, people need to sort of toughen up a little bit, because that's easy to say, isn't it? But if that number is true, then where is the support that those people then need to get them into a situation where they can go on and fulfill their potential? Because, if that's happening now, what's going to happen in 3, 4, 5, 10 years' time when the next generation are coming through? People who've been affected by COVID, of course. And maybe COVID's got something to do with the people that are out there now. So, yeah, I do wonder where all this is going.
Yeah, what is it about people that say the vows in front of their family, friends at a wedding, to their wife, and they don't follow them through?
Well,
it means nothing.
Well, I think it means something at the time. I think if you link it to do you get overtaken by competing priorities, i.e. work and what have you, my challenge back to you, because I know your work journey, because I've engaged with you, through it, and we've rubbed ideas off on each other, etc., etc. So my challenge to you would be, given that everything that you've been through to date, your journey to date, what does good look like to you in terms of work-life balance and how you can achieve the things that you want to achieve? And if your answer is to work 20 hours a day and have no time for other things in your life, I would say to you, you've got it wrong, Ruben.
Because you're also working, because in your head, you're working to this utopia goal in 20 years where you've killed yourself to get to this point, and then you and your partner are happy forever. But it's like, what sane person would stick around for 20 years being a side priority?
Yeah, and actually, you reach a point where you can't work 20 hours and be effective.
I can't do it now.
So I walk 6 to 7 miles every day. Rain or shine. I get up, I do one long walk in the morning, normally about 4.5, 5 miles. And then I walk the dog later on, 1.5, 2 miles. I do that every day. So that takes me 2 and a bit hours. So 2 and a bit hours a day, just walking. I do a bit of thinking. I may take my phone and think about stuff, look at email or whatever. You can't be productive 20. You're kidding yourself. And if it is that, as your uncle and someone who loves you, I would actually say to you, go and do something else that only requires 10 hours a day. So the challenge for you is, how can I change what I do today, get it into 50 hours a week or whatever, and make it work?
I don't think, though, this is the funny thing that I'm guilty of as well, but our best ideas come when we're not fucking doing the thing we're meant to be thinking about. I've had some brainwaves on holiday. Most of them delirious and drunk, but like they're still tangible. Yeah. When you're in the job, you can't be in a mental position to think about what's best for that job, because you're doing the things that job requires.
Well, that's true. But what you want to do is you want to get yourself into a situation where you sent me over a thing on WhatsApp the other day, and I looked at it and I immediately said to you, how about A, B, and C?
I need to be there.
You should be at a position where you're looking at that and saying ABC. So I think you've got the capability to do that, and I'm sure Tom has. But are you actually giving yourself the chance to think that way?
It's a very good point.
Question.
I think what we're doing now is big for not just your, but mine. It's a complete reframing of how we work, I think.
Very good combination.
It's concentrated quality work instead of that, right, the next 12 hours in front of this computer, what I do is what I do. You know what I mean? That's never worked for me. Ever.
No. We're both very similar in that. I think there's because of my childhood maybe being quite, not going to say exciting then, more like, I think quite fast paced and always sort of have something happening. I think that led into me. I can't sit still, but in the same, I've overstimulation. I like to be overstimulated, so I travel a lot. I have to do new things. So that is my addiction. Is kind of because
movement.
And I say it to Billy over the last 2 years, and I sort of feel bad. It's made me slightly emotional saying it. I find, because of the way that she's taken it, because I said I find life very dull and boring, and I've had to. I said that obviously in a certain state because I've been the most stressed I've ever been over the last 2 years, and my recent health, and I've spoke to you about it, would attest to that. Would prove that. And I'm sure lots of people out there can relate to that.
But you have to recognise what's going on, and you have to adapt. Now, you are a sort of person. Look, you've got this fabulous relationship, and let's hope that's going to prosper and take you to where you want it to. But it ain't worth your health for. So as much as I might like Tom, if I thought that what you were doing with him was killing you, I'd be telling him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'd be telling you. So you've got to find the right balance, because you can't get that time back. And also, just on a kind of a sort of a partner note, it's very, very difficult to find someone who actually, gives you what you want, what you need, and is also almost a better half of you. It's very, very difficult to meet those types of people. So when you have one, and if you're confident that person will see you through thick and thin, particularly the thin, then that's something worth treasuring. So even if the worst came to the worst and you two fell out and you said, I'm not putting in 20 hours into this bloody shower of shit, I'm off. And you think, well, where's my next dollar going to come from? You know that Billy's going to say, don't worry, it's taken care of.
And I'll be honest with you, I need to give her credit, because over the last 2 years, the ebbs and flows, ups and downs, she has been just always reliable, always there.
I did say to you,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I was worried at a point. I thought,
yeah, you
had
a bit nervous.
we had a couple of not intervention, you know what I mean? We had a couple of big talks, and I was like, mate, I don't think you're replacing her.
But certainly I think failing in business is one thing. Failing in a lot of things is whatever. But failing in something as deep rooted as that, as meaningful as that, because what will happen, right, is if that all went kaput, there'll come a time when you're going to look back and realise you fucked up. And you've got to live with that. Now, again, you might be able to say, okay, I did, but, here's the new Mrs. Whatever. And so you've got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision, and you've got to decide where you want that part of your life to fit in with the rest of it. And I don't see the value of chasing whatever you're going to achieve here for the sake of that.
Well, I wouldn't want you to. I categorically would.
It's more the previous.
Yeah,
not so much this, but anything.
But I'm just you've got to look at it this way: take those experiences, take those learnings, and you should be saying to yourself, I'm not going to put myself in that situation. I've learned enough about that to know that's not a place I want to go to again. Does this give you the out that allows you to leave that behind you and go forward in a slightly different direction? I would say to you, in terms of, if you're going to sit down for something at 20 hours, maybe you're looking too big. Perhaps you should break what you're doing into bite-sized chunks and say, okay, 3 hours, and then maybe another 3 hours. Okay, tomorrow now.
I've started implementing that.
You have, actually. To be fair, I think I've noticed a distinct, loud change in the way you operate, the way you talk, the way you sort of feel to be around. You know, when you're not around someone, you think, "Oh God, you're a heart attack coming, boy." People are a bit like that, where they're like, "Oh."
So obviously, I've known Ruben a long time, and all his life, and seen him in the work environment, and seen him grow and develop in, and getting good jobs, punching above his weight. So it's there. You've got it. So I don't think you need to prove anything to necessarily to yourself, or chase something that, or always wanting more. You got to remember, you're 27, 28, and you've run your own business. You've had senior sales positions. You've been well respected.
31 now.
31, is it?
Yeah.
I'm getting old. And well, I'm more than double that, so that is really scary. So all of that experience is what you've got in your locker, and it's how you take that now and try and go to the next level. But busting 20 hours a day is not going to achieve that.
No. I will say as well, as much as, and I'll take the compliment for once and go, yeah, I have done those things, I did have a secret weapon.
Cocaine,
baby. I tell you what, that is a good. Cocaine mixed with ketamine is a fantastic hit. No,
oddly specific example. Sorry.
Since I was very fortunate to have family that could guide me, and a lot of people, although I didn't have, 2 GCSEs, really not bright in that sense, I had people that could just, completely change up your life, So
yeah.
And I feel for people. There's a lot of people that haven't got anybody, and so what I would say, and that's a good example. If I was someone, if I didn't have yourself and that knowledge and guidance, things can be very different for all of us. And I think you dealt with certain cards, and then it's just like, and I guess I've always said, you said earlier about I want to help people, and I sometimes think a bit too big. Always feeling like I owe the world, whereas you just need to cut, and that's probably me. It's an ego thing, but I've never really. It's a strange one.
I don't think you owe the world at all. I think you
owe the world,
you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your wife. You owe it to your family, to be the person you are, and keep being the person you are. And actually, those people who are around you would say to you, "We don't want you to be doing 20 hours or burning your so we want you to be the person that you are." And that's good enough for them, so it should be good enough for you. You're not proving anything to them by doing 20 hours. In fact, you're making it worse.
And I've had that same message.
And from a personal perspective, the fact that I've been able to help you and support you has been very good for me, and it's the sort of thing that I want to do. I had my own consultancy business, and I got one-to-one with a few people and made a difference to them, and that's very, very rewarding. But for me, it's only really sharing my experiences and my ideas and giving them the benefit of that, and perhaps shortcutting their own learning experience because I can give it to them rather than having to go through 5 years worth to accumulate it. And when you see people actually take that, so there's a really good example of a young man I worked with, came from a motor dealer background. I broke my golden rule with interviewing. I met him in a hotel, and after the first interview, I offered him a job because he just blew me away. And I thought, this guy's just got something. So he came in, and yep, he was good, but he started getting a little bit cocky, I suppose, in a way, or lazy. And we went to a meeting with a supplier where he didn't do himself any favours at all. And I pulled him to one side the next day in the office and I said, look, you're better than that. And I explained to him where I think he'd let himself down, and he took it on the chin. So anyway, next day came to the office and he knocked on my door and he said, oh, can I come in and have a word? And I thought, this could be the old sealed envelope job. Didn't like the way you talked to me yesterday and what have you. He sat down and he said, I want to thank you. That's all right. He said, because what you said to me is exactly what I needed. And he said, nobody, including my own father, has ever spoken to me like that. And I was shocked. That guy is now, I think where he was working previously, he was in the top 10 salespeople globally at some international, earning mega money, and has just got a new job somewhere else earning shed loads. He's absolutely flown.
Yeah.
And,
one moment there.
The fact that he may at some time in the future say, do you know what? I met this bloke called Tony, and he pulled me aside and he did this and he did that, and it made a difference. So you may not ever hear that kind of thank you or get that credit. But if you do enough of those sorts of things, then there's a possibility it will happen. And I get as much satisfaction out of that now than I do out of any big sale that I ever made and any big commission check, because you're actually affecting people's lives for the good, and that's a really empowering thing to do.
What would you say, now that you touched on it earlier, that you don't want to call your age out, but you are entering into a time where you're going to be looking at retiring soon. There's a lot of people, retirees, coming up. We've got a huge amount. We're obviously thinking about how we're going to afford that with our current pension crisis. But more importantly, how do you plan on transitioning as someone who has never really been out of work?
No.
What's your thoughts on that?
Or are you even going to retire?
Well, it's a good question. It is a good question. I think I will retire when I'm very clear in my mind how I'm going to fill my time. At the moment, I don't have a plan as to how I would fill that sufficiently. I think
sufficient?
Well, I think I need to keep this going. So if I don't do paid work, I would probably go back into doing more non-exec type, where you can sit on the board of a charity and you're just adding value, given your experience and what have you. And there's lots of causes that I would like to kind of potentially get behind. But I think at the moment I'm sort of committed to working, I think, for the next 3 years, certainly. Part of the reason for walking 6-7 miles a day is to just keep the fitness up and
keep your mind clear.
Yeah, keep my mind clear. I think also the financial side of retiring is an interesting one. I probably overthink it. I probably overly cautious, but that's just the way I am. So I think obviously when both of us get in our state pension, suddenly you've got £25,000 a year coming in, and you've only then got to bolster that up. I think I'm in a position where I work now where I could probably go to them in 2 or 3 years' time and say, could I drop down to part-time or whatever, because what I do probably could slot into something like that. So I'm kind of open-minded. There's no doubt that, mid-60s today is very different from mid-60s 30 years ago. Of course, people were retiring at 65 and women at 60, when I was growing up. And there's so many people that kind of retire and then sort of go downhill very quickly.
I think the average, by the way, I think something stupid, that's why I asked you, was, I want to say, within it was a high percentage within 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
People dying.
I think humans need a purpose until they die. And whether that be your grandkids or whatever, as soon as that goes, I think your body physically just goes, I'm not needed.
Yeah. So I'm very conscious of that. I mean, I've always played sport, and I played football to an old age and what have you. So I've always been active, but I'm not as active now, anything like you, but the walking does help. And I did that because, I'm not a person who can get motivated by going to the gym and that feels like effort to go to. Whereas literally I can walk out my front door, I'm in the countryside, and I can just go where I want. I've got 3, 4, 5 different directions I can go. But I've got my set route in the morning. I know it's 9,200 steps.
He's a numbers guy.
And, I do that and that sets me up for the day.
What time do you get out of bed every morning?
Normally about 7.
Oh, it's not one of the 4 a.m.
No.
All these things.
My worst nightmare.
No.
4 a.m.
Before workout, shower, optimal.
I touch wood. I sleep well at night. So I think keep going as long as I can. I really enjoy what I do. So it doesn't really feel like work used to. I don't have the pressure. I probably wouldn't want to do more driving. I find driving now a bit of a chore, even though I enjoy it from, being with a road safety charity and what have you. But the idea of getting stuck in traffic, and I just don't have the...
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing from your point of view, of course, is that you've got 35 years to go, in theory.
And 40 years for yourself.
Yeah, I think readdress that. I think I'm more like 20 and you're more like 50. Something.
Yeah. So if you can, create a lifestyle that allows you to go earlier, then that's all well and good. But make sure you've got that plan.
The worst thing I could do to myself is have nothing to do. That would ruin everything I have, because my brain would immediately go, okay. You ready?
You're going to find things which aren't particularly good for you.
Oh, mate, I'll just fill my time with fucking shit.
Well, you'd fill it. As I said, we are addictive personalities. So if your addiction to road safety's gone, what are you going? Okay, I'm going to become addicted to walking. Okay, there's worse things. But yeah, so I think you've got to be careful not to fall into bad habits.
Would you say you're a peaceful person? Because I think it's coming around again. I think everyone really is struggling with any peace. I think we're all.
I count myself very lucky to have. Now, let's put this into perspective. When I look at a lot of the business people that I know, particularly those at senior levels, they've probably, most of them have got a higher net worth than me and probably done slightly better than me. When I look at me as working class, come from nothing, kind of compared to a lot of the people that I may have known when I was younger and what have you, I've absolutely done well. So I'm content in terms of where I've got to. And, you know, the day when I phoned up the Building Society to say, I'd like to make the final payment on my mortgage, please.
Hallelujah.
Was an absolute wow moment, you know. And so, yeah, content, yes. But, you know, there's always something to worry about, you know, because you've got kids and nephews who are in the world trying to make their way in difficult times. So, you know, if you care, you sometimes take some of that on board, that concern, anxiety and whatever, and there are things that you can't control. But aside from that, you know, generally speaking, I think I've arrived at a good place. And I can look back and say, going back to right when I said about the schooling and what have you. So to have got to where I did, I obviously had it in me. Could I have brought it out earlier if things had worked differently? That's a question I'll never answer. It's a question that doesn't really need answering. It's a question that is not worth pondering about, really, because it is what it is. But I can actually look back and say, do you know what? Done all right.
No regrets?
No.
Pretty good going, isn't it?
I think you have to have none. I think you have to.
Loads of people do, don't they?
No, of course. Some of them are probably you should regret that, but I've never made anything that bad, I don't think. But I'm glad even the things I did do that weren't good, I think I don't regret it really. Cause
I think there's regret and there's, you know, yeah, should I have gambled as much as I did when I was very young? No, I shouldn't have done. Do I regret it in terms of, I regret it from the point of view of I could have done so much more with that money, but then I could have been addicted to going on holidays or doing a hobby that cost a lot of money, and I probably would have spent the same amount. So it's gone. Nobody really got hurt, although I would acknowledge that I did cause my wife some pain with it, and that I don't feel comfortable about.
I think that's the real regret every time, isn't it? It's how you made someone else. It's not the action you regret. It's I made someone innocent be a victim of my. That's the real regret, isn't it? So I wish I hadn't done that.
Do you feel, I guess you worry about your kids, your grandkids, about the world there. I think there's
about the world.
Just
wow.
Your thoughts on that quickly, because there's a lot of evil. It's so cool. You can see
like I said to you, you know, if you can get to a position where you've raised children, turn them into good people who can look at the world in a way where they can see a path for themselves and they can follow that path, you've done really, really well. I think the sheer complexities of modern day living in terms of AI, the impact on employment, the you know, are our streets safe? You know, is the country going to go bankrupt? Is there going to be a world war? You know, if there was a world war now, I'm actually too old to go and fight. But I would happily say, keep my two boys at home and I'll go. Because if anyone's got to die, let it be me. Because to a certain extent, I've kind of done most things.
Sorry, mate, your eyes are gone. You're gonna miss your shot, I'm afraid.
You know,
Specsavers before we send all of them out, eh?
Yeah, that would be, if I could do that, I absolutely would. So you do worry about
drones?
Things like that. Yeah, but nuclear goes off. and who knows what would happen.
Is it crazy that we're having that conversation? I guess when you were growing up, you didn't really hear about.
It was a Cold War when you were.
Cold War,
Yeah, there was a little bit. I mean, I suppose there's always been stuff going on. I think from the time man's been on Earth, there's always been
the current
conflict. Yeah, I mean, what I would get a bit philosophical here, but what I really struggle with is the fact that religion is supposed to be the thing that kind of takes us to a place where we're all holier than thou and what have you. Yet it's religion and religious beliefs that are underpinning most of the world's kind of atrocities and conflicts. And what have you, God versus Muhammad and what have you. I'm actually an atheist. So I don't see Jewish, Islam, Sikh, or whatever. I mean, I used to work with someone very closely who was Jewish, and until he told me, I had no idea. And other people used to say to me, "Oh, you can tell he's Jewish. I mean, he didn't wear the skull cap or anything like that." I said, "What do you mean you can tell?" "Oh, I can't tell." So,
are you a good person or not?
It's got to be on merit, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the only metric that actually works is merit.
Absolutely.
Everything else is just like...
Until you go over to Israel right now or Gaza.
I wasn't planning on going...
Yeah, I mean, those are difficult subjects, difficult conversations. But if you break it down to just the individual human level, it cannot be right. Let's put it this way. Am I the sort of person that through an ideology could inflict something so horrendous on another individual? I don't even know I've got the ability to do that. The only time I think I could ever do that would be if someone did something to my direct family. But to go and say, you follow something that I don't, and therefore I'm going to be so full of hatred to you that I can do something unthinkable to you. I don't know how people's mindset gets into that.
I think they'd never had a chance. They always were, their families were that. So they're that. If you're born into that and that's that, then that is that.
And do
you know what I mean? Do you think?
Yeah. Sorry to interject. You just had the thought as you were saying that. Do you think since the dawn of time, because we've smashed that guy's head over to get his cave, smashed his head in, and we've gone through all the different wars, or we've raped and pillaged every town as we've gone through it, different tribes, do you think we've just basically carried that all the way through to basically have this vengeance? So there's a side of us, like the line between good and evil is very, all the sayings about that. Do you think we just carried underneath? There's some places in the world which have seen so much death, and they don't value, you can see all the, be careful on what I say here, some places in the world just don't value life as much as we do in the civilized, in the Western world. And that's just true, they don't. And so do you think there's just a vengeance underneath the religion?
I think money comes into it. If you look traditionally, the poorer places are the more dangerous.
Yeah.
And the reason they place less value on life is because they're starving sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the, there's so much nuance to it, but I think when you look at the world,
we can't comprehend.
It's nearly impossible to understand, I think.
Yeah,
There's so much in there.
Yeah, I think the one of the great discussions of our time, of course, is the climate and climate change, and I think there's no doubt about it that the climate is impacted. I have a bit of a concern that the UK at 0.9% of global emissions has led the world in terms of our own ability to reduce our emissions as much as we have. But we're on a course where the energy prices show no sign of falling. Energy costs are one of the biggest factors in holding back productivity in this country because it's hard for businesses, et cetera, et cetera. In certain cases, what we've done, we've actually just moved our CO2 emissions to another country and then we're creating more CO2 by bringing the stuff back.
Yep.
So it's hard to, and of course, in some poorer countries of the world, they're saying, well, bugger your CO2 targets and all of that. I'm trying to survive. I'm cutting down trees so I can make a fire to keep me warm.
And also, westernized countries have gone through their industrial revolution and are now in a place of privilege to be like, whoa, we can improve what we're doing. Whereas, like, you take like a brick country, I guess, they're like, well, you didn't care about carbon emissions when your entire infrastructure was being upgraded, and what's we're now supposed to delay our progress by 10 years because you have this rule about carbon. And like China, we're like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, we'll do what we want.
It was interesting because I don't know why, but me and Karen had this conversation the other day, and we were talking about dinosaurs for some bizarre reason, and I had to actually Google it and say, well, because they said, oh, we were watching some program, they said, oh, the dinosaurs went out of existence. And I said to her, why did they go out of existence? And I looked it up on Google, and it was something like some meteoric collision or something in the earth, and they just all went and died, and the earth obviously survived in some form, and what happened. But so there is a part of you that says, is all this climate change gumph? And we're just on a collision course that there's going to be another seismic event that changes the shape of the world as we know it today. But actually, it's a bit like you can dig up grass and put concrete, but somehow the grass still comes through. It's like, so the Earth's powers of recovery are unbelievable.
It's like you see that thing that says if all humans went extinct, apart from the pyramids and maybe Stonehenge, in 1,000 years, no one would ever know we were here. Which is amazing. You think of all the infrastructure, all the stuff we've built, all the fucking like dams, everything. It takes nature about 1,000-odd years to go slate clean.
So I'm not someone who dismisses climate change. I believe climate change is a thing. Do I think we have got the balance right here, and the way that impacts businesses? I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I work in the automotive sector, and the automotive sector is very crucial for that, with the electric vehicles and what have you. And certainly, the government is encouraging company car drivers to take up electric vehicles. So, you can have a £60,000-70,000 electric vehicle costing you £70-80 a month as a company car driver. Now, the equivalent in petrol diesel would cost you £400-500 probably a month. So for some people, they're saying, thank you very much, I'll take the £400 a month saving. That's paid half my mortgage. But of course, that's to get things going. That's to get the market rejuvenated and get electric vehicles into the market. Those 3-year-old vehicles come off lease and they go into the second-hand market. And the private buyer then thinks, oh, I've got a good deal on this car. One of the challenges, of course, is that a 3-year-old vehicle has a range of 150. The one that's coming out today has got a range of 400. Who wants the one with the range of 150? So, most of the big leasing companies in the UK who have been selling electric vehicles into the company car market have taken an absolute battering on resale values.
Of course, because it's lithium-ion
hundreds
batteries.
of millions, because the way it works is they buy the car for 70. They say, Ruben, you're going to lease it for 3 years, and when it comes back, it will be worth 40. It comes back, it's worth 25. They've just taken a 15 grand hit on that car. And if there's several thousand of those coming back, that's why you lose hundreds of millions of pounds. Okay, they'll correct it because that's what they do. But when correcting it, it makes the cost of leasing that vehicle much more expensive because you're financing more. There's some real interesting dynamics, and salary sacrifice is another way of kind of circumnavigating that, to offer cars to people, both company car and employees, a way to get real good value for money. But that whole and people have got to remember, there's going to come a time when the cost of owning and running an electric vehicle will be as much, if not more, than running a petrol or diesel today. Because we're not doing this to make motoring cheaper. We're doing this to reduce CO2. So at the moment, if you're a company car driver, of course, yes, it's very attractive, and it will continue to do so over the coming years, I'm sure. But over time, it won't, because the government makes £35 billion a year in fuel duty from petrol and diesel. Well, if there's no petrol or diesel cars, it can't afford to write off £35 billion a year. So that £35 billion is going to be put on electric vehicles. What they haven't done yet is they haven't told you how they're going to do it. And it's actually quite difficult because it's paid through fuel duty. So every time you fill up, you pay it. And it's a beautiful model for the government, because all the petrol stations are collecting that tax for you, and they send you a nice lump sum. You start charging people pence per mile. So you've gone from your house to Barnstable, 20 miles or whatever it might be, and it's 10p a mile. You owe the government £2. Well, how are you going to pay it? And how
digital ID
and how good are the government at actually collecting, let alone £2, other forms of money that you have to pay for, whether it be council tax or whatever? Who they're gonna chase for that £2? It's going to cost them £50 to send you a chase for the £2 you owe them.
And it's a great point. And do you think that's why Starmer, when they say a certain message, it's actually something else? Digital ID will stop immigration. They say things because people want to hear that people
mitigate
right now,
illegal immigration.
They want to stop illegal immigration. So let's say digital ID, which they know people are going to be in uproar about, because everyone's already surveilled enough anyway. They already know what we're all doing on our phones, what we're searching, what we're sending messages. They already see it all. But now we're going to say, okay, you need to provide your ID, passport, national insurance number. We need a digital ID number now suddenly.
But there's a missing point here, which nobody seems to mention.
Right, let's hear it.
Right? So all these people come over and they work in the black economy. Well, if we know they're working in the black economy, we know who they're working for. So all the food delivery companies or the taxi companies or the whatever, hold them to account and say, you're clearly taking on people who are bypassing your systems for checking that people are legitimate. If you don't get your act together, we're going to fine you tens of millions of pounds. So if those people can't get those jobs, that's one way you do it. So it's not all about the individuals. And I don't see how, if those rogue employers are prepared to bypass the processes that are already supposed to be in place for verifying ID, what difference is a digital ID card? Because they're about profit. If that bloke's prepared to deliver food at £8 an hour and the minimum wage is 12, more profit for me. Thank you very much. You've got to go after the companies. And we probably know who those companies are. So why are we not even...
And we're putting we're putting 1p, or it's going to come. The next budget, we're putting 1p on income tax or whatever it is, 2p. Whatever. How many companies in the UK are using schemes and using clever, very specialist accountants to not pay any tax in the UK?
Well, yeah, that's another thing that they should be looking at. I mean, the 1p on tax, I mean, at the end of the day, that raises about 6 billion. So if Rachel Reeves has got a black hole of 30 million, she ain't putting it up by 5p. But it just shows you the scale of the challenge that we face. And put aside the fact that, you know, the welfare spending's gone completely out of control. We're already 3 trillion in debt. Government borrowed 20 billion last month. So, you know, we are in a hole. And I think, do you know, I partly think that we are to blame as citizens, because we fall for this stuff. Someone tells us that if we get in, we're going to drop tax by this. Brilliant. 2p off my tax. I'm going to be, but actually everything else has gone for through the roof. So it never adds up. The fact is that if we had to truly pay our way, we'd have to pay more. Okay, you could argue that, yeah, but we need to stop people getting benefits who shouldn't, the migrants. Have that debate, that's all well and good. But as it stands at the moment, we cannot afford to pay our way. And what I think we should stop doing in the pursuit of votes is we should stop pulling the wool over people's eyes.
But that's not going to stop if you think about it, is it?
Well, I think it creates the dangerous thing, well, not dangerous, but the potentially dangerous thing it does is it creates an environment where people will latch on to non-politicians who just argue for change, regardless of, you know what I mean? When that trust dips, I think, enough, people will follow people who have got nothing to do with politics, who just say the right things. And you see it in these environments. The most dangerous people come out of these environments because they know, as long as they aren't them, people... You saw it with the American election. People were voting for Trump because it wasn't Kamala. That was the mindset, and vice versa. It wasn't about their policies or his policies or that. It was, I don't want him.
Well,
and that gives rise to that sort of person who knows how to play that game very well.
We are on a cycle here where Labour got in because people didn't want the Tories, and Reform will get in because people don't want Labour. So how is it that we're ending up in a situation where it's almost like we're in a, we talk about the race to the bottom price-wise in business. We're on a race to the bottom in terms of politicians, because the Tories were bad. Then you say, well, Labour, actually, they're bad, if not worse. Reform will come in, and then actually Reform will get found out, because Reform are going to have to face up to the same issues that everyone else has. You've got lots of balls to juggle. And whilst you may be very strong on here, these two are going out of control. So what are you going to do with them? Because suddenly the people are looking at you now and saying, yeah, we like that bit, but this bit we're not so happy about. What are you going to do? And then Reform's going to come out and start sounding exactly like Labour and the Conservatives. So, we'll never do it, but I'd like to see a complete shift. I'd like to see... do you ever watch Prime Minister's Questions? It's a laughing stock, really, in terms of... If that's the democracy that exists in our country, the way that they carry on, the back and forth between them, the non-answering of questions, the trying to catch someone out, everything's about how can we discredit the government so that somehow miraculously there'll be a general election and we'll get back in. It's not about that. It's about focus on your policies and focus on trying to take people on a journey. But we have to play our part, because as long as we continue to be seduced by people that tell us that the things we want to hear, we'll consistently be disappointed. We need some cold, hard facts. Is if we want what we need, we've got to pay more.
It's a very good point. And people will mention Starmer or Rishi or Trump or Biden or Xi. They all say they're all puppets. Maybe not so much Xi, because they're different in China and Russia. But in the West, they say they're all puppets. And if you follow the money, who's actually making money in wars? Who's making money in conflict and dividedness? And the government there's all these problems. Every party's looking at it going, we've got all these problems from a bird's eye view, like we do in business, like we do at deals. And they're going, okay, everyone's got a solution in a different way, but clearly...
I wouldn't be surprised if when you got your key to 10 Downing Street, there's some bloke in there who says, congratulations on winning, this is how it works.
Yeah.
And he goes, look, well done, you got it.
Where's the money flowing to?
But it's not people, that's the thing. When you get to that level, it's not... Prime Minister's a human being, he's a person, he is a single face. I think we exist in a world where the power is faceless because it's money moved. That business owns that business. You're that. I think we still believe the government's got more power than it actually does. Which is why when someone sits in front of him and goes, "What are you gonna do about houses?" He goes, "Ooh,
yeah,"
because he knows
it's the only answer, really.
You cannot believe that the government has been this incompetent for this long without some sort of reason.
We say, "Oh no,
And
conspiracy."
I don't. Is it a conspiracy? Is it a conspiracy to think that like there's corporations who own countries? You know what I mean? Like,
and you're right. Look at our own families. Look at the companies we've worked at, and when we see the hierarchies and what really, I've got a family member who's been right to the top in some big organisations, and you're making decisions, and you have to because
I think it's all a big smoke and mirrors.
You make you sell your soul. To a degree. I mean,
it is smoke and mirrors, and basically you're just moving stuff around, and you're trying to make the story as positive and palatable as possible.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do it in such a way where you can keep power. I would say to Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, Ed Davey, if you had to stay in opposition for the next 20 years, but the country was actually flourishing, would that concern you?
Yeah.
Because it all seems to be about undermine, discredit. We want power. We want to be those people. But actually, no matter who it is, they've all got rotten eggs in there. They've all got people who are incompetent. And they've all got, in the same way in business, right? You've got people who make it to the top and they take certain people with them because they're yes men or they think the same or
useful idiot.
Whatever. It's the same in there. I'm sure. So yeah, we're in for some difficult.
Which is why you got to focus on. You got to focus on what you
can control.
That's always what it always makes me feel better.
Habits.
That always brings me back to happiness. That because you go down that route and you're like, well, we're fucked. But then you think, hold on. Realistically, today, what's impacts having on me today? Maybe it have a slightly different impact tomorrow. But for my own sanity, I have to just focus on.
And if we bring it back to sales, almost like a final kind of parting comment, but if you bring it back to sales, there's never been a better time to find, develop and retain people who can operate at that level up there, because those people are worth their weight in gold. And they're hard to find. So if you're a salesperson who's in that category, the world is absolutely your oyster right now, because selling is tough in this environment. So yeah, I'd love to be 20 years ago me in this environment with the knowledge I've got now.
You'd be like ChatGPT.
With the it would be, wow. That's certainly I think that would be great for me. So yeah, I think it's it's been really good to have the chat, and we've gone to some places I've never talked about before. Although I've talked to friends, and funny, I had the conversation about gambling the other night actually, with some people. I think it's nothing to be really ashamed of. It shows that you're human, and you're no different necessarily to anyone else. Not that I ever thought that anyway. I think it shows that anybody can go on a journey where they can end up optimizing the skills that they've got. And I think that's one thing I will say. I think I achieved the limits of what I could.
So it really must be actually quite a nice feeling, that.
Yeah.
Lovely feeling, yeah.
Thinking, do you know what? My potential was here, and I was
And I
there.
got there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that, I wonder if everyone was asked honestly that at 50, 60, I wonder what that answer would be.
Yeah. I don't know.
Honestly.
Because sometimes you don't know that you've overstepped your potential until you've done it, and you find out, actually, I'm not cut for that.
Yeah.
Well, it's going into the unknown, which many people find uncomfortable, and that's why they stay put within the that comfortable. That people say, "Oh, you're settled in mediocrity."
But I think for you, in terms of your journey as your organisation, clearly it's very exciting now with the things that you've got bubbling, but it ain't worth 20 hours of your time a day.
I own the company and I don't do that.
To come to a close, and like you say, it's been a really wonderful conversation. We appreciate you coming on here. This may be slightly morbid, but I guess as someone with, you said, 3 kids, grandkids, is there a message you want to leave them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to think that they would say that I was always there, always approachable, and would always try to help and support them. I think I've been a very present dad. You know, been to watch all the football games, been to the sports days, picked them up from school, taken them to nights out with their friends, brought them back when they were drunk, and tried to do my very best by them, and for my wife as well. So I think that's all any of us really try to do. I think in our own way, and if you're lucky enough to go 40 years and still be trying to do that, then I count myself extra lucky, I suppose, from that perspective.
Little bonus. Lovely. Well, what
Thank
a
you very
great place
much.
to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been
My
a pleasure.
My pleasure.